Chapter 1949. Bang! Accompanied by a heavy thunder-like muffled sound, a huge black dragon in the sky immediately turned into a falling meteor. Like a meteor, it streaked across the sky and directly hit the ground. Dong! The moment the giant black dragon smashed into the ground, the entire ground seemed to be shaken. It trembled a few times, raising a thick cloud of dust and setting off a powerful gale. It swept across like a typhoon, instantly covering an area of thousands of meters. As for the spot where the collision occurred, the ground directly caved in, as if it had really been hit by a meteorite. It suddenly collapsed, stirring up pieces of rubble, causing a huge crater to appear on the ground. This huge commotion even alarmed the demons in the nearby cities, and they were all in an uproar. The underworld would not cause earthquakes or natural disasters. After all, after reaching the level of the highest demons, their own strength could already be considered natural disasters. Therefore, this huge commotion immediately attracted the attention of all the alarmed evil demons. Most likely, there were two rather terrifying powerhouses fighting nearby, which was why the commotion was so intense. Therefore, in each city, the demons began to consider whether or not to contact the enforcers. At the same time, in that huge crater, the giant black dragon, whose scales were cracked, struggled to stand up from the ground. Large amounts of blood continuously flowed out of his ferocious dragon mouth. It was obvious that he had suffered an unimaginable injury. At least, Klon Kuak felt as if there was lava flowing in his body. It was as if his internal organs were being burned, sending a shocking pain. That intense pain made Klon Kuak's head feel as if it was being scalded. He became muddled and couldn't stop coughing out mouthfuls of blood. How could this be? Klon Kuak muttered to himself in disbelief as he coughed out blood. Just one punch and I'm injured to this extent? Although Klon Kuak's scales weren't as tough as Glendale's, it wasn't something that could be broken by just anyone. However, at this time, Klon Kuak's scales were like decorations, completely useless, causing him to be seriously injured. In this situation, Klon Kovacs could only think of one possibility. Could it be the Dragon Slayer? As soon as Crown Quach's voice sounded, Noah's voice responded. That strike earlier did indeed contain the dragon kill. Noah slowly descended from the sky, floating in front of Klon Quach. His entire body was shrouded in a crimson flame. Noah spoke softly as he looked at Klon Quach in the crater. My Forbidden Hand is a subspecies of Forbidden Hand. Other than the original Forbidden Hand ability of the Red Dragon Emperor, it also has an extremely powerful defensive power and dragon kill power. The reason why Noah's Forbidden Hand was a subspecies of Forbidden Hand was because the artificial artifact recreated the state when the artifact fused with the embodiment of authority. After fusing with the divine artifact, Noah's Dragon Emperor avatar had 5 effects. 1. It could transform the body into a dragon's physique, possessing strength comparable to that of a giant dragon. 2. It could possess the dragon kill power that was highly lethal to dragon-type creatures. 3. It could obtain astonishing defensive power, comparable to the immortal body. 4. It could possess close combat ability that surpassed wildness and intuition, and could be called a divine skill. 5. It could obtain the ability to multiply and transfer. Now, Noah's authority was sublimating, but the artificial artifact recreated the ability when it fused with the gauntlet. As a result, once the Forbidden Hand was used, other than the 4th ability of close combat, Noah's 4th avatar, the Dragon Emperor, could recreate the rest of the abilities. Physical strength comparable to that of a giant dragon. Dragon kill power used against dragons. Astonishing defensive power of air scales. Multiplication and transfer. Therefore, once he used the Forbidden Hand, Noah was equivalent to using the avatar of the Dragon Emperor. After stacking with the 4-digit level of strength, he rushed to the Sky Dragon level in one go. In addition, the artificial artifact also recreated Drake's 3rd ability when he was alive, penetration. Once Noah used the Forbidden Hand, the upgrade was even more terrifying than when Cao Cao used the Forbidden Hand. Cao Cao's Forbidden Hand was superior in its variety of abilities. Although Noah did not have as many as 7 types of forbidden hand abilities, it was an overall improvement in strength, defense, and ability. In that attack just now, not only did I use Dragon Kill, but I also used Transfer. I used all the multiplied strength to amplify the effect of Dragon Kill, and I also added Penetration. It directly ignored the defense of your scales and caused damage to you. Noah looked straight at Clone Kowak. Multiplication, Transfer, and Penetration. The 3 abilities of the Red Dragon Emperor were used in that punch just now. In addition to Dragon Kill, as the purest dragon, you're lucky that you didn't die directly. It would be strange if you could get up. Of course, Noah did not say that although he used the 4 abilities of Multiplication, Transfer, Penetration, and Dragon Kill, he did not use them to their limits. It should be said that the ability of Multiplication was not used to its limits. Just now, Noah could actually multiply his strength 3 more times. If he multiplied it 3 more times and used the Transfer ability to amplify Dragon Kill, as well as the Penetration ability that ignored the defensive scales, that attack would definitely be able to kill Clone Kowak. In other words, Noah did not multiply his strength to its limits. That attack just now could be considered as Noah being merciful. That was why Clone Kowak did not die. Clone Kowak did not know this. However, there was one thing that Clone Kowak knew. That was, he really could not continue to fight. Understanding this, Clone Kowak stopped struggling and looked at Noah in a daze. After a while, he said this. I want to ask you a question. Noah did not reply. He only looked at Clone Kowak and asked silently. Seeing this, Clone Kowak asked. The White Dragon Emperor who inherited Lucifer's blood developed the Tyrannosaurus without any side effects. Then, as the Red Dragon Emperor who is famous for being a god slayer, did you also do the same thing? Noah suddenly became silent. And this silence made Clone Kowak understand. Is that so? Clone Kowak seemed to have received the answer and closed his eyes. I lost. As his voice fell, Clone Kowak's body began to shrink. From the pitch-black dragon form, he returned to his human form. As expected of the host of the Red Dragon Emperor, Drake, who is known as the crystallization of power. Clone Kowak said without any regret. You've shown me the might of a heavenly dragon, Yizichin said with a smile. Actually, Clone Kowak knew this. Noah's strongest weapon was not the divine weapon, but the power that everyone knew was unique to the god slayer, the simulated star atlas, another cosmology. Clone Kowak was not a human, but a dragon. If Noah used the simulated star atlas, another cosmology, he would be able to easily defeat Clone Kowak. However, Clone Kowak wanted to see the power of the Red Dragon Emperor, not the power of the god slayer. Noah clearly understood this, so he used the best method to respond to Clone Kowak. Unfortunately, I did not get the answer. Clone Kowak looked at the sky. What exactly is a dragon? Hearing that, Noah slowly landed in front of Clone Kwoch. He looked at the strongest evil dragon lying in front of him and said calmly. If you don't understand, then just keep thinking. Keep thinking? Clone Kowak repeated Noah's words. Yes, keep thinking. Noah smiled. After all, this is the biggest thing in your life. If you get the answer so easily, wouldn't it be boring? Crown Kua was stunned for a moment, then he suddenly smiled. Yes. Clone Kowak smiled. That's true. After that, Clone Kowak ignored the pain in his body and forced himself to stand up. Being able to stand up after just a short rest, although this guy had a different kind of stubbornness compared to the other dragons, he was still an evil dragon. Looking at Clone Kowak like this, Noah suddenly felt that although this guy was an evil dragon, he was very much to his liking. Therefore, Noah spoke almost instinctively. Hey, do you want to come to our side? The sudden words made Clone Kowak stunned on the spot. Chapter 1950. On this day, the sky was clear and there wasn't even a cloud in the sky. It could be said that the weather was very good. On the boundless ocean, waves were stacked on top of each other. Although it wasn't turbulent, it set off waves that made people feel relaxed and happy. Seagulls were crying in the air. Waves were surging in the ocean. Coupled with the cloudless weather and the beautiful scenery of the sea and sky, if possible, many people would want to drive a cruise ship and have a vacation under such beautiful scenery, right? However, at a certain moment, this beautiful scenery was ruthlessly destroyed. Clank! A huge magic array suddenly flashed on the surface of the sea, blooming with dazzling light. It was a teleportation magic array. Moreover, it was a large-scale teleportation magic array. In the unique light of the teleportation magic array, a black tide emerged. No. That wasn't a black tide. It was a beast tide formed by pitch-black dragons. Dragons exuding an ominous and evil aura flew out from the teleportation magic array. Like a tide, the dragons surged out and covered the surrounding area in an instant. From afar, it looked like a huge black cloud. And in front of the black clouds, there were dragons that were completely different from the rest of the dragons. However, there were two people in front of the dragons that were clearly different from the rest of the dragons. Two men with silver hair that shone in the sun. "We're here." Euclid looked around and said faintly, "Lord Lesavim, we've arrived at the human world." "Not bad, not bad." Lesavim showed a very unpleasant smile. "After the work is over, I'll apply for a reward for your hard work." "Unfortunately, I don't get paid for my work," Euclid said expressionlessly. "Lord Lesavim, you don't have to worry." Aya. Lesavim didn't realize that he was talking nonsense and said very casually, "That's a pity." While Lesavim was wrangling, Glendale spoke up impatiently. "Cut the crap. Hurry up and attack. I can't wait to fight with the powerful guys." That's right. Nidhogg also shouted. "I can't wait to eat good food too." Although Radon, Apophis, and Az Dahaka did not say anything, their eyes were filled with impatience. Looking at this scene, Lesavim's face twitched with a nasty smile, and he cursed in his heart. During this period of time, Lesavim was almost driven mad by these evil dragons. Not only did they fight with me every time, but they also couldn't be controlled. If it weren't for Lesavim controlling the Holy Grail and being able to stop the Holy Grail's power at any time and let these evil dragons return to the earth, I believe that these evil dragons would have already run away. Of course, Lesavim couldn't wait for these evil dragons to die. As the son of the Demon King, Lesavim couldn't even remember how many years it had been since he was angered like this. The last time he was so angry was when Sazax and Achuka chased the old Demon King to the border of the underworld and forced him to flee. Now, this wasn't the first time Lesavim was angered by these uncontrollable evil dragons. With Lesavim's temperament, how could he tolerate it? If it weren't for the fact that he needed these legendary dragons as his fighting force, Lesavim really wanted to use the power of the Holy Grail to transform these evil dragons into caterpillars. When everything is settled, I'll definitely let you know what happens to disobedient children. Lesavim thought to himself, but he could only force a smile on his face. Lord Glendale, Lord Nidhogg, Radon, Lord Apophis, Az Dahaka. Everyone, don't be anxious. The fun stuff is yet to come. Lesavim tried his best to pacify these evil dragons. It couldn't be helped. Lesavim didn't tell the evil dragons that the main purpose of this operation was to annihilate the humans. If he told the evil dragons that the purpose of this operation was to attack the defenseless humans and destroy the mythical forces one by one, these evil dragons definitely wouldn't agree. What the evil dragons wanted was a battle that could make their blood boil. They didn't want to torture and kill defenseless humans. They could kill humans to anger their opponents. They could also wreak havoc in order to lure their opponents out. However, they definitely wouldn't use underhanded methods to indirectly destroy their opponents. If they knew the purpose of Lesavim's operation, the evil dragons would definitely turn against him immediately. That was why Lesavim only told the evil dragons that the main purpose of this operation was to kill the human god Slayer. In other words, Lesavim was telling the evil dragons that their opponent this time wasn't the mythical forces, but the god Slayer. When they knew that Lesavim was planning to kill the god Slayer, the evil dragon's eyes lit up. They agreed without hesitation. Lezivim could only smile apologetically while secretly despising these evil dragons in his heart. All of you are idiots. Undoubtedly, there are many things to enjoy in this world. Why did you choose to do the most boring thing? As expected, evil dragons are a bunch of idiots. This vulgar and despicable guy didn't know that compared to the evil dragons, he was even more unsightly. Although the evil dragons were crazy, they had their own stubbornness. Lezivim didn't have that at all. In the eyes of others, the evil dragons were a bunch of lunatics. However, in the eyes of others, Lezivim was a despicable villain. Comparing the two, there was no doubt that a lunatic with stubbornness was of a higher level than a villain with no bottom line. Only Euclid didn't care about this and followed Lezivim wholeheartedly. That was because Euclid's family was supposed to support Lucifer, the demon king. Euclid took this as his own belief. No matter how despicable Lezivim was, as long as the blood of Lucifer flowed in his body, he would follow. There was no doubt that this was blind. Coupled with the evil dragon army that had been modified and lost all sense of reason, the current Calamity Group was basically a twisted organization. A deformed organization that combined despicability, blindness, and madness. And in this deformed organization, Lezivim was the leader. Evil dragon lords, our goal this time is to get close to the god Slayer. As for the other mythical forces, we can slowly deal with them later. Lezivim raised his eyebrows at Aziz Dahaka and Ladin. So, in order to not let those gods, Buddhas, and demons disturb our mood, I'll have to trouble Aziz Dahaka and Ladin to use a spell to cut off communication and a barrier to block teleportation. But my barrier isn't strong enough to cover this world, Ladin said in a low voice. Your Highness, is there any way for my barrier to cover the entire world? Don't worry, Lezivim said proudly. I've already selected a few hundred evil dragons and transformed them into the same type as Ladin. When the time comes, they will assist Ladin. Even if it can't cover the entire world, it will still prevent those mythical forces from entering the human world. Is that so? Ladin nodded indifferently. Then there's no problem. Aziz Dahaka doesn't have a way. Lezivim spread out his hands helplessly. Magic and magic are equivalent to knowledge. A group of unintelligent evil dragons will never be able to use magic and magic, construct spells and rituals. It's almost impossible to create an evil dragon similar to Azrael Dahakajan. I don't need any fake evil dragons. Aziz Dahaka snorted. It's just a spell to cut off communication. I alone am enough. Enough. Enough, enough. Aziz Dahaka's other two heads echoed as if they were performing a crosstalk. It looked a little funny, but in fact, it gave people a creepy feeling. Very good. Lezivim smiled cheerfully. Then, let's start attacking the cute humans. However, just as he finished speaking, a strange phenomenon occurred. Clang. With a flash of light, a huge teleportation magic array suddenly formed on the sea surface and in midair. In an instant, it covered the entire evil dragon army. The smile on Lezivim's face froze. Chapter 1951. Clang. Under the dazzling light, teleportation magic circles appeared one after another in front of Lezivim, Euclid, and the rest of the evil dragons. They filled every single space around them. Immediately after, countless people started pouring out from the teleportation magic circles. Among the people, there were angels, demons, fallen angels, and all kinds of Shura gods and Buddhas. Even vampires were among them. In other words, almost all the alien races that were different from humans were here. Wah! Lezivim was shocked. How can this be? Euclid was stunned as well. Even the legendary evil dragons were completely stunned. They did not understand why the people from the various mythical organizations would appear here. How is it? Lyran? Arthashel stepped forward, and the 12 black wings on his back spread out. His gaze was like an arrow that shot towards Lezivim. Do you like the surprise we gave you? As soon as Arthashel finished speaking, the Shura gods and Buddhas from the various mythical organizations that surrounded the entire evil dragon army started emitting terrifying auras. Roar, roar, roar. Perhaps because they felt threatened, the evil dragons in the evil dragon army started roaring violently as if they were trying to intimidate. The deafening dragon roars resounded throughout the sky above the ocean, and a dangerous atmosphere started spreading in the surroundings. The legendary evil dragons who had regained their senses looked at the Asura gods and Buddhas of the various mythical organizations surrounding them and started laughing. Ha 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 ha. So many powerful guys are here. That's great. Glendale, with so much delicious food, I can finally have a full meal today. Nidhogg, I didn't expect to be defeated here. Radon, isn't this interesting? Azzy-Dahaka, interesting. Apophis, for these legendary evil dragons who were eager to fight, this situation did not scare them. Instead, they became excited. Roar, roar, roar. The mass-produced evil dragons also seemed to have been affected by their original form. Their roars became even more violent, and the murderous intent in their eyes almost reached its peak. The dragon wings on their backs flapped as they became restless. Unfortunately, Lezawim wasn't in such a good mood. Don't move. Both of you are passive. Lezawim roared, glaring angrily at Asashurs. Damn it. Why are you guys here? Is there a need to ask this question? Asashel mocked. Of course it's because your little trick has been seen through, Lylin. As expected, it's just as Noah said. You're just a mediocre character. You don't deserve the title of Son of the Demon King. Lezawim clenched his fists, his face full of anger. He was shocked because his actions and thoughts had been completely seen through. He was angry because of Asashel's sarcastic and contemptuous words. At this moment, a crimson figure and a resplendent figure appeared at the same time beside Asashel. Looking at the two people, Lezawim opened his eyes wide. Sazax. Michael. Long time no see, Lezawim. Sazax looked at Lezawim condescendingly with an unusually calm expression. I never thought that we would meet again in such a manner. You must pay for what you've done. Michael's face was completely indifferent, and his eyes were full of coldness as he looked at Lezawim. The debt between the heavens and the underworld shall be settled once and for all. Settled? Do you think you can defeat me like this? Let me tell you. Dream on. Lezawim was so angry that he laughed. Indeed, I didn't expect you to see through my actions, but so what? I have the evil dragon army that can challenge all the mythical factions. Plus, with the Holy Grail's transformation, you can't stop me. It's not up to you whether we can stop you or not. Asashel condensed a spear of light in his hand and pointed it at Lezawim. Don't even think about leaving here today. Just as Asashel finished speaking, Sazax and Michael ordered at the same time. Go. In the overwhelming crowd that surrounded the evil dragon army, terrifying auras exploded one after another. Oh! Demons, angels, fallen angels, vampires, Shura gods, and Buddhas burst out with shocking roars, carrying an aura that humans could not possess as they rushed out like a storm. Almost at the same time, Lezawim gave the same order. Kill. It was a simple word, but it made the evil dragons behind him go berserk. Roar, 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 roar. The densely packed evil dragon army roared together, shaking the air. The evil and ominous aura on their bodies skyrocketed, and with an incomprehensible madness, they charged forward without showing any signs of weakness. On one side was the mythical faction formed by various mythical factions. On the other side was the evil dragon faction formed by densely packed evil dragons. The creatures from the two factions were like two monstrous waves that crashed into each other. Kaboom! For a moment, the entire world rumbled, causing the ocean below to fluctuate violently. On the other hand, the people from the Myth faction and the Evil Dragon faction engaged in the most intense battle, turning the entire area into a battlefield. The mythical faction included demons, angels, fallen angels, vampires, and even various Shura gods and Buddhas. They gathered almost all the otherworldly races from all over the world. These otherworldly races all had their own mysteries. Demons used magic power. Angels and fallen angels used light power. Vampires used the power of mist and darkness. All sorts of Shura gods and Buddhas also burst out with shocking power, and engaged in the most intense battle with the evil dragon faction. Compared to the mythical faction, the evil dragon faction also had many tricks up their sleeves. Although they were all mass-produced evil dragons transformed from the Holy Grail, after a period of research, Lezoim had already used the Holy Grail to create 3 replicas of the legendary dragons, Glendale, Radon, and Nidhogg. Although these replicas were not as powerful as the original and had the power of a Dragon King, Demon King, their own performance and abilities were definitely comparable to superior demons, and were even stronger than the younger generation like Lyath and Canna. As a result, the evil dragon faction actually managed to hold off the myth faction for a while. Both sides fought back and forth, causing waves of blood, severed limbs, and even corpses to fall from the sky and sink into the sea. The sea was gradually dyed red. The bloody stench that even normal people could smell made the blood of the legendary level evil dragons boil. Good. Good. Let's fight. Let's fight. Glendale. Even if they're corpses, they're not fresh, but they're all my food, my food. Nidhogg. How many years has it been since I was this excited? Radon. Aren't you quite capable? Azdahaka. It's been a long time since I've seen you, and I can't wait. Apophis, the evil dragon's heartless words almost infuriated Lezoim. Why are they still making sarcastic remarks at a time like this? Bastards. Lezoim's eyes turned red. If that's the case, I'll play with you until the end. However, Lezoim's words attracted a few voices. It will be dangerous if you guys are allowed to cause trouble on the battlefield. Therefore, you should go find your opponents. Following that sentence, 4 figures appeared around Lezoim, Euclid, and the legendary level evil dragons. Sazax. Achuka. Seraphil. Felubium. They were the 4 demon kings. Without giving Lezoim and the others any time to react, the 4 demon kings unleashed their mana. In the next moment, a magic circle suddenly appeared under Lezoim and the others, releasing a blinding light. Lezoim, Euclid, and the other legendary evil dragons were all shocked. They were shrouded by the blinding light and gradually disappeared on the spot. Only the dense evil dragon army was left, madly attacking the mythical factions. Chapter 1952. When he finally reacted, Euclid discovered that he had actually arrived at a prairie. Looking around, Euclid's brows furrowed as he subconsciously muttered to himself. This is, just as this murmur sounded, a stern voice rang out. This is one of the 5 alternate dimensions jointly constructed by various mythical organizations. When this voice entered Euclid's ears, his calm expression instantly changed. Because, to Euclid, although he had not heard this voice for a long time, it was very familiar. It was so familiar that it penetrated his soul. Hearing this voice, Euclid's lips trembled uncontrollably. He slowly turned his head and looked at the source of the voice. There was a tall woman with silver hair that was almost identical to Euclid's, braided into 3 tails. She was also wearing a knight's battle armor. Looking at the tall woman, Euclid's eyes trembled violently. He believed that as long as she was an evil demon, he would definitely recognize her. Gulifia Lucifergus. One of the most powerful female evil demons in the underworld. A member of Lucifer's family. The current evil king Lucifer's wife. The existence known as the most powerful queen. Every title made it impossible for evil demons not to recognize this tall woman. Now, this tall woman did not follow her master, the current Lucifer Sazax, to fight against the evil dragon army. Instead, she stayed in this alternate dimension, waiting for Euclid's arrival. Looking at Euclid's trembling eyes, Gulifia's stern and serious face revealed a complicated and sorrowful expression. Euclid, you're still alive. Hearing this, Euclid subconsciously opened his mouth. Sister, that's right. Sister. Gulifia was Euclid's sister. Blood-related sister. When I heard from Lord Noah, I didn't really believe it. After all, back then, it was indeed unknown whether you were alive or dead. Even I thought you had died. The complicated and sorrowful expression on Gulifia's face became even more intense. Who would have thought that not only did you survive, you even joined the group of disasters and became a terrorist, aiding the tyrant? Back then, the old Demon King faction fought with the current Demon King faction. In the end, the current Demon King faction won. Sazax, Achuka, Seraphil, and Felubium became the new Demon Kings. The stubborn old Demon King faction was driven to the edge of the underworld. As a member of the old Demon King's faction, Gulifia fell in love with Sazax on the battlefield. In the end, she wasn't banished to the edge of the underworld, but instead became Sazax's consort and the new Demon King's wife. As for Gulifia's younger brother, Euclid, no one knew whether he was dead or alive after the war, and his whereabouts were unknown. As time passed, even Gulifia believed that her little brother was dead. However, if a third party were to look at them now, they would notice that Gulifia and Euclid did indeed look alike. Whether it was that head of silver hair or that face, it was very similar. There was no doubt that these two were brother and sister. It was because of this that Noah felt that he had seen Euclid somewhere before. It was only when he saw Gulifia again that Noah confirmed this. In addition, when they first met, Euclid had also introduced himself in the same way. I am Euclid Lucifergus. Lucifergus. The demon clan that once supported the old demon king Lucifergus was also Gulifia's family. Euclid and Gulifia shared the same surname and looked very similar. How could this not arouse Noah's suspicion? Later on, Noah also mentioned Euclid's existence in front of Sazax and Gulifia, causing Sazax's expression to change. Gulifia, on the other hand, was at a loss for what to do. Thus, this meeting took place. Answer me, Euclid. Gulifia's expression became very tense. Why did you join the group of disasters? Why? Euclid's expression returned to normal, and he laughed mockingly. Sister, do you really not know why I joined the group of disasters? Because of Lucifergus? Gulifia stared at Euclid. Because you are a descendant of the family that must support the demon king Lucifergus? Perhaps that's part of the reason. Euclid smiled noncommittally. But since you can abandon the name of Lucifergus and live your life, I have the right to live the life I want, right? Is that so? Gulifia closed her eyes. Becoming a terrorist and bringing disaster to the world. Is that the life you want? Euclid looked at Gulifia and said, the life I want is one that is compatible with the life of a demon. Lord Lezavim has everything about the demon that I seek. That's why I follow him. I understand. Gulifia opened her eyes, and fiery magic slowly rose from her body. Since that's the case, I will also treat you as a true sinner and take you down. You're still as strict as before. No matter what I do wrong, you won't show favoritism. But that's how you should be, sister. Euclid's eyes glowed with a heat that had never been there before, and his body surged with mana that did not lose out to Gulifia at all. However, if you want to teach me a lesson, it won't be as easy as before. Sister, I'm also a demon with the same blood as you. Since you can become a demon king, I can naturally do the same. Now, I won't lose to you. Gulifia didn't say anything else. She looked at Euclid without any emotion, only sternness. Since she found out that her brother was still alive, she couldn't let him walk down the wrong path. It was with this belief that Gulifia came here. I won't show mercy. At the same time, in another alternate dimension, the black-clothed Apahis was looking at the person standing in front of him, his face full of surprise. He couldn't help but be surprised. This was because the person standing in front of Apahis was no stranger to him. He was wearing the same black clothes as Apophis. He had the same human form as Apophis. He had the same evil aura as Apophis. Only his eyes, one gold and one black, were completely different from Apophis's eyes that seemed to have condensed all the darkness in them. It was Crown Kuvok. Apophis was truly shocked to see this man who was also known as one of the strongest evil dragons, just like himself. It's you? It's me. Crown Kuvok nodded, his gaze never leaving Apophis. I lost to the Red Dragon Emperor, so I agreed to help him fight against you. I see. Apophis understood almost immediately. You sent us, who are the main forces, to different spaces, and used forces of equal strength to defeat us one by one, or at least delay us. The rest of the forces will be gathered together to deal with the evil dragon army. You'll also be able to separate Lezavim, who has the Holy Grail, from us and prevent us from reviving. Is this your plan? I don't know. Crown Kuvok said straightforwardly. I'm just following the Red Dragon Emperor's orders and waiting for my opponent here. Oh. Apophis smiled. So you're saying that you want to fight me? That's right. Crown Kuvok smiled. Are you afraid? Afraid? Apophis smiled even more happily. It would be great if evil dragons knew what fear is. The gazes of the two most powerful evil dragons met in midair, and intense sparks were ignited. Hum. In the next instant, a similarly dense pitch-black draconic force erupted from Apophis and Kuvaka's bodies. Roar, 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 roar. Two dragon roars rang out, and two giant dragons with the same black luster appeared in this space. The only difference was their appearance. Crown Kuvok was a typical Western giant dragon. Apophis, on the other hand, was in the form of a dragon snake like an Eastern dragon. Roar, 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 roar. The two completely different evil dragons with the same powerful aura roared at the sky, and the sound waves shook the air. Then, the two sides suddenly moved and collided violently. Chapter 1953. While the battle was going on in the two different spaces, in another different space, a fierce battle was already in full swing. Buzz. In the humming sound of the atmosphere, a huge magic array unfolded in the sky and instantly expanded to a range of more than a dozen meters. In the huge magic array, bolts of lightning formed by magic power fell like raindrops, directly shrouding the ground. There, Lezavim's face was gloomy as he looked at the lightning bolts falling from the sky. He didn't even try to dodge or defend himself, he just raised his hand towards the sky. An inexplicable fluctuation reverberated from Lezavim's raised hand, like a protective shield, it protected Lezavim within. The numerous lightning bolts that descended from the sky came into contact with the ripple that could not be seen with the naked eye. Immediately, they slowly disappeared into the air, not leaving behind even the slightest trace. Lezavim's face didn't look any better after easily dissolving the surging magic power attack. He was still extremely gloomy. Lezavim raised his eyes and looked at the sky. He saw the figure almost immediately. The figure was wearing a pure white comet-like armor and had a pair of blue light wings on his back. He looked like a small white dragon. Yo, little Wally. Lezavim's face was gloomy, but his tone was extremely nasty. My grandson, we haven't seen each other for so long. Is this how you greet your grandpa? Lezavim. Wally's tone was full of anger and indifference. I finally got the chance to destroy you. Destroy me? Lezavim grinned, raised a finger, and shook it arrogantly and contemptuously. No, Wally, you should know that, right? You can't defeat me with your words. Whether I can do it or not, it's not with words, but with actions. Wally said in an unprecedentedly cold tone. Don't worry, I will kill you before the others defeat the evil dragon. Wally's words poked at Lezavim's sore spot. After being teleported to another dimension, Lezavim realized that he was in trouble. Using the power of the Holy Grail, Lezavim had indeed resurrected legendary evil dragons and even transformed them into mass-produced evil dragons, forming an army that could threaten all mythical forces. However, Lezavim knew that this threat was only on the surface. That was because, other than the legendary evil dragons, the mass-produced evil dragons were all irrational and only had crazy battle instincts. Under such circumstances, even if their strength was equal, one side was a resourceful army, and the other side was a group of dragons that were worse than beasts. It was obvious who would win and who would win. Although the legendary level evil dragons weren't completely irrational, they were all idiots with inexplicable stubbornness. They wouldn't listen to orders at all, so it wasn't strange for them to be defeated at any time. That was why the true terror of the evil dragon army was that they had the Holy Grail as their backup. They could continuously revive. Even if they were defeated, they could be resurrected to continue fighting. That was the terrifying part of the evil dragon army. As long as they had this advantage, even if the evil dragons were all irrational beasts, they could still be a terrifying threat. However, what Lezivim understood was also understood by others. For this, the allied forces of various mythical forces had already planned. Even if they couldn't take the Holy Grail away, they had to teleport Lezivim and Euclid, who might be in possession of the Holy Grail, into another dimension to isolate them and eliminate the threat of the Holy Grail. As for the evil dragons, those dangerous and crazy fellows, if they were left on the battlefield, the possibility of accidents happening was too high. It should be known that when the demons, angels, and fallen angels were fighting, it was the two heavenly dragons that caused havoc on the battlefield. In the end, the three forces had to stop the war and deal with the two heavenly dragons first. Currently, in the evil dragon camp, Glendale, Radon, and Nidhogg were all Dragon King level existences. Apophis and Az Dahaka were only second to the heavenly dragons. In addition, the evil dragons were dangerous and uncontrollable. If they were left on the battlefield and caused trouble, there was no telling what would happen. Therefore, the various mythical forces had already decided to lock Lezivim, Euclid, and the legendary evil dragons into another dimension. Then, they would select the elites to deal with them one by one. At the very least, they had to stall for time. Then, the various mythical forces would gather their forces and annihilate the evil dragon army without any support. Just like what Apophis said, this was the plan of the allied forces of the mythical forces. Using the 5 dimensions to separate all of you and destroy you one by one. This is our battle plan. Wally looked down at Lezivim. And you are my prey. Prey. Lezivim was furious. You actually think of me as your prey? That's right. You can't even be considered an opponent. No, it should be said that you are not qualified to be an opponent for me to enjoy fighting. You are just a prey that I want to kill. Wally said coldly. Lezivim, you don't deserve to be called the son of the Demon King, and you don't deserve to have the name of Lucifer. You are just a vulgar and despicable person. I will kill you and live on with the glory of Lucifer. Glory my ass. Lezivim snorted, but his tone was also filled with rage. My cute grandson, let me remind you of the consequences of going against your grandfather. With that, 12 demonic wings suddenly spread out behind Lezivim's back. His body also surged with magic power. The strength of his magic power easily surpassed that of Wally, who was in a forbidden state. And it was far more than that. That was not strange. Wally in his forbidden state was at most at the Demon King level. In terms of Box Ting's level, he was at the top of the 5 digits. Although Lezivim was much weaker than Sazax and Achuka, he was still a surpasser who was famous for being an alien existence that transcended races. His strength had long surpassed the Demon King level, exceeding the top of the 5 digits, and reaching the bottom of the 4 digits. In terms of strength alone, the difference between the bottom of the 4 digits and the top of the 5 digits was 5 times. In other words, in terms of strength alone, Lezivim was at least 5 times stronger than Wally. It was natural for him to far surpass Wally in his forbidden state. Not to mention, Lezivim had the ability to nullify artifacts. Coupled with this ability, the gap between Wally and Lezivim was too terrifying. There was no way to win. In response, Wally just chanted in a ruthless tone. I awaken, let the absolute law fall to the white dragon emperor of darkness, let the infinite destruction penetrate the dream of dawn, to the tyranny, I become the emperor of the immaculate dragon, lead thee to the pinnacle of the silver fantasy and the demonic path. A dazzling flash bloomed on Wally's body. Silver Juggernaut Overdrive. At this moment, Wally's aura suddenly skyrocketed to an astonishing level, instantly surpassing Lezivim's. Lezivim's eyes widened. When the dazzling light dimmed, Wally, who had transformed into the Juggernaut Overdrive, with silver armor and terrifying power fluctuations all over his body, appeared in Lezivim's eyes. Lezivim. Wally seemed to want to vent all the anger and resentment in his heart as he growled. You will become history here. Oh. They're fighting. They're fighting. They're fighting. In another alternate space, Az Dahaka, who had been teleported in, immediately used the projection spell as he watched the fierce battle between Wally and Lezivim. His tone was extremely happy. Being teleported into an alternate space might be troublesome for Lezivim, Euclid, and the other evil dragons, but for Az Dahaka, who had mastered thousands of spells and was astonishingly accomplished in magic, it was not worth mentioning at all. However, Az Dahaka did not deactivate the alternate space spell and use the teleportation spell to leave. Instead, he watched the show with relish. As a descendant of the demon king Lucifer, compared to that third-rate trash Lezivim, the White Dragon Emperor seems to be more to my taste. I really want to fight the White Dragon Emperor. I really want to fight Lucifer. The three heads stared at the image in the projection, as if they were conversing with each other, speaking to each other. However, not long after, Az Dahaka put away the spell. All three of his heads turned in one direction and laughed out loud. But compared to the White Dragon Emperor, I'd rather fight with you. I've really hit the jackpot, ha 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 ha. While Az Dahaka was laughing, a figure slowly walked over. Looking at the laughing three-headed evil dragon, the figure of the ancient demon king who called himself the absolute evil gradually became clearer in his mind. Noah walked forward step by step as he watched the approaching three-headed evil dragon. A terrifying look flashed in his dark eyes. Let me see if you can be like the demon king I once saw, and show the courage to subdue the heavens and earth. Chapter 1954. In the chaotic space, the three heads of the three-headed evil dragon were all staring in the same direction. Their red jade-like eyes flickered with a scorching and joyful radiance, making it very clear what they were feeling. Az Dahaka, who was in a great mood, looked at Noah who was slowly walking over, and all three heads laughed. So my opponent is the Godslayer? That's great. But I didn't think that I would be able to draw it. Listening to Az Dahaka's three heads' playful words, Noah stopped and said faintly. After all, you are the only one who won't be trapped in this alternate space. With your magical attainments, it would only take an instant for you to come up with a spell to escape from this alternate space. For this reason, I naturally had to prepare a foolproof opponent to deal with you. With that, Noah changed the topic. However, even without this factor, I still want to deal with you alone. Oh. Az Dahaka grinned. You want to fight me too? I want to ask you a question. Noah looked at Az Dahaka and asked. Why are you evil? Everyone suddenly fell silent. Az Dahaka's mischievous smile froze for a moment before it returned to normal. All three heads spoke at the same time. And here I thought you were going to ask me a question. It's a little boring. Do you want me to answer you? Noah ignored Az Dahaka's playful laughter and cast his gaze directly on him. Under such circumstances, Az Dahaka's smile did not diminish, but his tone became indifferent. Then, Az Dahaka said this. If that's the case, then let me ask you. In your opinion, what exactly is evil? I don't know. Noah's answer was very straightforward. I have seen too many evil people, but their evil is different. Is there really an answer to this question? What? Don't you know it very well? Az Dahaka pursed his lips. But I want to tell you that in your opinion, what you have seen before is evil, but in the eyes of others, it might not be so. What? Noah was slightly taken aback. You see, doesn't everyone have their own standards of value? Az Dahaka spoke with assurance. Children think that people who steal their toys are evil. Adults think that people who steal their money are evil. Men think that women who are shrewish are evil. Women think that men who cheat are evil. The so-called evil is simply something that other people put on them. If you say it yourself, is there any meaning? If I tell you now that I'm actually a good person, you won't believe me, right? Dahaka snorted. Azzy Dahaka's SS, I am an evil person, but I don't care. I just want to fight with powerful people. If it can satisfy me, that is enough. Azzy Dahaka said this from the bottom of his heart. If this is the so-called evil, then I am evil. Azzy Dahaka's other two heads also spoke. Anyway, this is an evil dragon. An evil dragon should be evil. Azzy Dahaka's words caused Noah's gaze to change as he looked at the evil dragon, and he fell silent. Ever since he knew that Azzy Dahaka had revived and become an enemy as a member of the disaster squad, Noah had been comparing him to absolute evil in the box. It couldn't be helped. In the box, the mystic dragon that transcended myths and became the final human trial had left a very deep impression in Noah's heart. Until now, Noah had encountered many opponents. Some of these opponents had been taught a lesson, some had been killed directly, some had been forgotten in the blink of an eye, and some had been left in his memory. It could be said that there were all kinds of opponents. Among these opponents, if there was one that Noah respected the most, it would undoubtedly be Azzy Dahaka. Ever since the mystic dragon became the final human trial, he had been wreaking havoc in the box. Not only did he have a 3-digit level of strength, but he also had a simulated star atlas, another cosmology, that exceeded the box by more than 3 digits. He had killed more than 1 million gods, causing the box to fall into an abyss of suffering. Frankly speaking, the mystic dragon's actions could be said to be the type that Noah hated the most. He did not care about the target, the individual, or time and space. This evil god that originated from the sect of fire unleashed the same horror, despair, doomsday, and destruction on everything. He destroyed everything in sight, regardless of whether it was people, things, or objects. Who knew how many innocent lives he had killed? To Noah, who had always believed that the innocent should not be harmed, and who believed that life was precious, this was definitely an existence that could not be tolerated. Therefore, Noah did not hesitate to challenge him, and even more so, did not hesitate to kill him. Even though he was covered in wounds, he still pierced through his body and dug out his heart. When he did this, there was no mercy or sympathy to speak of. Even if Azzy Dahaka was resurrected again, Noah would definitely kill him. However, Noah had a very deep respect for this absolutely intolerable existence. This was because Noah did not forget that Azzy Dahaka had done evil in order to give humans a glimmer of hope. He had transcended the myth and become the final human trial. In the end, humans would definitely walk towards doomsday. This was a fact that could not be changed. There was nothing that could remain the same forever. Humans were not the masters of Earth from the beginning. Instead, they gradually prospered through the long history of evolution and became the overlords of the land. However, who could be sure that humans could continue to survive? No. No one could. Perhaps, one day, humans would walk towards extinction due to an unknown disaster and give up their position as the overlord of the land. Humans' final trial was born because of this. Materializing the elements that would destroy humans was the final human trial. Azzy Dahaka had injected the elements that would lead humans to extinction due to their evil intentions into his body, and even into his soul, becoming the Demon King. This was all for the sake of leaving humans with a glimmer of hope. As long as this Demon King could be defeated, the elements that would destroy humans would disappear, and the future of humans would be guaranteed. Azzy Dahaka had done evil because of this. Therefore, Azzy Dahaka would not compromise with humans. Only by doing his best to defeat him would humans have a glimmer of hope. Therefore, even if Azzy Dahaka's actions were unforgivable and deserved death, it was believed that everyone who knew the reason would still have the purest respect for him. This included the rebellious 16 knights. With such an example, how could Noah not compare this world's Azzy Dahaka to him? However, it was only at this moment that Noah understood. Azzy Dahaka was Azzy Dahaka. Azzy Dahaka was Azzy Dahaka. Although the two came from the same source, they were still different. One did evil in order to leave humans with a glimmer of hope, and used evil to show kindness. The other did what he wanted. It was pure and simple, and was not hypocritical or pretentious. It knew its place and was not afraid of battle. The so-called evil was just something that others put on it. Although they were different, the evil in both of them was the type that others could not hate. It's just that Azidahaka. Noah looked up at the three-headed evil dragon. Your evil is really too small. That's right. Although he was not the type that others hated, compared to the demon king that could conquer the world, the evil of this world's Azidahaka was still too small. Although your evil is stubborn, it doesn't have faith. Noah looked directly at the three-headed evil dragon. I've seen evil that even if all the gods and Buddhas descended from the heavens, they would still have to admire. It's a pity that my evil doesn't need others to acknowledge it. Azidahaka grinned. It doesn't matter if you want to deny it, hate it, or even despise it. I just want to fight with someone stronger. It doesn't matter who it is. As for whether it's good or evil, that's up to others to decide. If it's good, then it's good. If it's evil, then it's evil. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The three heads of the evil dragon said in a playful tone. Thus, Noah also laughed. Since that's the case, let me see just how much evil you have. Chapter 1955. Amidst the faint air-piercing sound, a comet-like trail of light descended from the sky at a terrifying speed that was close to the speed of light, heading straight for Lezavim's direction. Even Lezavim could barely see a ray of light flashing through the air at such a speed that he couldn't see it clearly at all. Damn it! Is this the Tyrannosaurus Rex? Lezavim cursed, but he didn't dare to be careless at all. The 12 wings on his back flapped fiercely, and his figure retreated like a bullet, flying directly into the air. Trying to escape. Varley's figure stopped at Lezavim's original position, and he raised his head and looked in Lezavim's direction. I won't let you escape. After saying that, Varley spread out his hands, and a surge of mana surged from his body and gathered on his hands. After using the extreme Tyrannosaurus Rex, Varley's power had skyrocketed to an extremely shocking level, and it didn't take much time to gather enough magic power to split mountains and seas. Therefore, almost at the instant when Lezavim retreated, a burst of lightning magic power erupted and turned into an endless barrage that swept across the space and enveloped Lezavim's direction. The barrage of lightning could be described as dense and dense. At least, Lezavim's vision was completely filled by the lightning bolts, and there was no room for other scenes to interfere at all. Moreover, each of the lightning bolts was at least a Demon King level attack. If he was hit by thousands of Demon King level attacks, even a surpasser like Lezavim would be severely injured. What the hell? Lezavim was really scared. Although he had long heard about how terrifying the Tyrannosaurus Rex form of the two heavenly dragons was, it was one thing to hear about it, and another to actually face it. What's more, Wally's Tyrannosaurus Rex was obviously different from Tyrannosaurus Rex. It didn't have that crazy ominous curse, but the power it displayed was still ridiculously strong. Furthermore, Tyrannosaurus was a power that could cause people to lose their rationality, but Wally didn't have to worry about that at all. Even when facing Lezavim, a blood relative with whom he had a deep hatred, he was still extremely calm. This made Lezavim's sense of crisis almost explode. But Lezavim sneered. No matter how powerful it is, as long as it's the power of a divine artifact, it's useless against me. As soon as he finished speaking, Lezavim also stopped in his tracks. He raised both of his hands high and gathered a shocking amount of magic power in his hands. Although the mana wasn't as powerful as Wally's with the Tyrannosaurus Rex, it still stirred up the atmosphere and gradually gathered into a mana bullet with a diameter of 2 meters. Then, Lezavim didn't fire the magic bullet in his hand, but instead allowed the storm of lightning magic to fall on his body. Wang! Accompanied by a trembling sound, the rain-like bolts of lightning that fell on Lezavim didn't cause any aftershocks, nor did they cause any damage. Like phantoms, they disappeared without a trace the moment they touched Lezavim. Thousands of Demon King-level attacks all disappeared just like that. Come on. Wally-chan. Lezivim shouted. Let Grandpa reward you with a big one. Lezivim's whole body fluctuated with dense mana as he shouted. A huge mana bullet with a diameter of more than 10 meters had already gathered in his hands that were raised high. Just the shining light on it caused ripples of power to appear in the surroundings. In the next second, the huge mana bullet fell from the sky and violently shot down like a falling meteorite. It rubbed against the air and set off waves of violent wind. In the sharp sound of the explosion, it directly fell in Wally's direction. That momentum, even if a demon king saw it, he would be scared to the point of breaking out in cold sweat. Although it's decaying, at least this power is real. Wally looked at the huge mana bullet indifferently, but he didn't dodge. He directly raised his fist, gathered mana on it, and threw a lightning-fast punch at the falling mana bullet. Bang! The fist carrying terrifying power blasted the huge mana bullet that was more than 10 meters in diameter and several times larger than Wally's body without any suspense. However, Wally's expression suddenly froze. Because the mana bullet that was blasted apart didn't dissipate. Instead, it seemed to have disintegrated into countless mana bullets the size of a human head and surrounded Wally. You've been tricked. Lezivim laughed and suddenly clenched his hand that was facing Wally. All of a sudden, the countless head-sized magic power bullets turned into cannonballs, and without any warning, they shot towards Wally from all directions. Even if he used Tyrannosaurus, under such a comprehensive attack, Wally still couldn't escape. Therefore, the corners of Lezivim's mouth slowly curled up. He opened his eyes wide and was ready to enjoy the beautiful scene of his grandson's armor shattering, skin breaking, and blood dripping on the ground under the surging barrage of attacks. Unfortunately, Lezivim was destined to see that scene. Reflect. Such a voice suddenly sounded from the pieces of blue jade on Wally's silver armor. Immediately after, Wally's armor became crystal clear as if it had turned into glass. Under such circumstances, the mana bullets that landed on Wally's body were all reflected back as if they were all bounced off. They pierced through the air at a faster speed than before and violently shot toward Lezivim. What? Lezivim was taken aback. However, at this moment, the overwhelming mana bullets had already arrived in front of Lezivim. Lezivim didn't have time to react at all. Fortunately, Lezivim's artifact nullification ability was constantly in effect. Even if Lezivim himself didn't react, it would still take effect. Therefore, the moment the mana bullets violently shot over like cannonballs touched Lezivim, they were like stones thrown into the sea, creating ripples and disappearing into the air. Seeing this scene, Wally said bitterly. Sure enough, even if the attack itself isn't my power, as long as it's reflected by the artifact's ability, it still won't work. Wally's voice finally woke Lezivim up. What did you just do? Lezivim looked at Wally with an ugly expression. Isn't the White Dragon Emperor's ability halved and absorbed? What happened just now? Hearing this, Wally was silent for a moment, then said faintly. That's reflect. Reflect? Lezivim was stunned. Reflect. Without a doubt, that was the ability of the White Dragon Emperor, Arubian. It was different from halved and absorbed. After being sealed in the artifact, it completely disappeared and was never used again. After a conversation with Noah in the Kaipesh royal city, Wally began to immerse himself in unearthing the artifact's ability. He tried to unearth the third ability of Arubian like Noah. The result was gratifying. It didn't take long for Wally to succeed. Such a smooth success even made Wally a little uncomfortable. Regarding this matter, Asashel gave an explanation. Perhaps, the God of the Bible used the almost impossible condition of reconciliation between the two heavenly dragons as a shackle to seal the third ability of the two heavenly dragons when they were alive. If that was the case, then it could explain why Wally found the third ability so easily. Because, in the Kaipesh royal city, Drake and Arubian already showed signs of reconciliation. Therefore, Wally successfully unlocked the seal of the third ability and obtained the ability called Reflect. As the name implied, it was the ability to reflect the opponent's attack. Although it could only reflect energy attacks, it was still quite powerful. Unfortunately, the energy attack reflected by the artifact's ability is also counted as the power of the artifact. It can't be effective against the guy who has the artifact's ability to nullify it. Wally was a little unwilling and said in a low voice, "I'm sorry, Arubian. I have to use that ability." Chapter 1956. Red Dragon Emperor Drake. White Dragon Emperor Arubian. Everyone knew that they were the only two sky dragons. In addition to being powerful enough to make gods and demon kings fear them, they also had terrifying abilities. Red Dragon Emperor Drake had the ability to multiply, transfer, and penetrate. It was called the crystallization of power. White Dragon Emperor Arubian had the ability to reduce, absorb, and reflect. It was called the nemesis of power. However, before this, whether it was Drake or Arubian, there were actually other rumors. In Opesh Royal City, Drake mentioned that in addition to the two inherent abilities of the artifact and the sealed third ability, the two sky dragons actually had another ability. Drake's ability was flame. Arubian's ability was poison. Before being called the nemesis of power, Arubian was feared by all existences in the world because of its poison ability. It had a white and beautiful body, but it could use a highly toxic poison that even gods had to retreat. Before meeting Drake, Arubian was such an existence in the eyes of others. Arubian hated it very much and even cursed it. This was because no creature dared to approach Arubian, who possessed an almost invincible poison. Undoubtedly, it had a white and beautiful body, but it was like a rose, able to stab anyone who approached it. Arubian lived alone in this world. No one wanted to get close to it. No one wanted to be its opponent. Even if it didn't use its poison ability, Arubian was feared by everyone. Arubian felt disgusted with itself from the bottom of its heart. However, after meeting Drake, Arubian's values and perceptions had changed. "You are Arubian, right? I've heard that no one can survive your poison." The first time they met, Drake challenged Arubian with an unruly attitude. At that time, Arubian didn't take Drake seriously. Although the other party was not afraid of its poison and took the initiative to approach it, it was believed that no one could have a good first impression of a guy who was courting death. However, in the end, Arubian was shocked. Because its poison had no effect on Drake at all. What? It's not as powerful as the rumors say. Drake, who made such an arrogant declaration, displayed great power and defeated Arubian. Yes. He had lost. That was the first time in Arubian's life that he had ever been defeated. "You are very strong. Even if you don't use that ability, you are still very strong. However, you rely too much on that ability. You don't even have the qualifications to be my opponent. Go and train yourself properly. I will accept your revenge at any time." With such a declaration, Drake proudly left under Arubian's gaze. Covered in wounds, Arubian looked at the red dragon that was gradually disappearing into the distance. There was no resentment or unwillingness in his heart. There was only the purest thought. There's actually such a powerful dragon in this world? Then, another idea grew in Arubian's heart. I want to be as strong as him. It was from then on that Arubian sealed his own poison and pursued powers other than poison. As a result, his ability to absorb and reflect was halved. Arubian had successfully developed these brand new abilities during his years of battle with Drager. Gradually, he gained the title of being the nemesis of strength. Together with Drager, he was promoted to the level of a sky dragon and was known as the two sky dragons. If it hadn't met Drake, Arubian would have definitely used the ability of poison and become a poisonous dragon that relied on this ability instead of strengthening itself like it was now. It was precisely because it met Drake that Arubian improved itself and evolved into a brand new domain. Drake was the same, right? It was precisely because they were good opponents that the two dragons became the only two sky dragons. No matter what, they were pursuing to become stronger. The only people who knew about this matter were those who had lived in the same era as the two sky dragons since ancient times. Varley only learned about this matter later. Varley agreed with this point of view. If he were a Rubian, he would definitely abandon the power of poison. Even if there was no poison, it didn't matter. That was what Varley had always thought. After all, the power of the White Dragon Emperor was strong enough, wasn't it? However, after reconciling with Drake in the capital of Sepesh, Varley also felt it. After witnessing the current Red Dragon Emperor, who was constantly pursuing himself and would never deny himself, Arubian's thoughts changed once again. Do you want to use my poison, Varley? Arubian's somewhat complicated and somewhat relieved voice came into Varley's heart. Well, since the God Slayer and Drake are moving forward, if I still stay in the pain of the past, then I can't go any further. Varley, let us pick up the glory and ugliness of the past and move forward together. At this moment, the jade on Varley's body bloomed with unprecedented gentleness and dazzling light. Bathed in that light, Varley closed his eyes and experienced Arubian's hatred, disgust, and denial of his past self. He whispered in a low voice. I will bear all of your losses, Arubian. I swear to you that I will never become a poisonous dragon. That's right. Arubian's voice was so loud that it resounded throughout the entire space. We are not the poison dragon that pursues poison, we are the powerful sky dragon from the beginning to the end. An unprecedented dazzling light bloomed all over Varley's body. What's wrong? Lezavim shouted out in confusion. What's going on? Ignoring Lezavim's shouting, Varley raised his head and looked at Lezavim. Venom. It was a low and high-pitched voice. When such a voice sounded from the jade on Varley's body, an invisible force swayed through the space like a hazy fog, shrouding in the direction of Lezavim. Although I don't know what the hell you are doing. Lezavim showed an ugly smug smile. But didn't I say it? The power of the artifact to me. Before Lezavim could finish his sentence, he felt a sharp pain in his body. Poochie. Lezavim only felt a sweetness in his throat, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His whole body fell from the air and heavily hit the ground. But it wasn't over yet. In the next moment, unimaginable pain burst out from the depths of Lezavim's soul and attacked Lezavim's whole body. Ah! Lezavim let out a painful scream and kept rolling on the ground. Blood flowed out of Lezavim's mouth, nostrils, ears, and eyes, dyeing his face red. The so-called bleeding from the 7 orifices referred to this situation. No, impossible. Lezavim screamed and roared. Why wasn't it nullified? What kind of ability is this? It wasn't Varley who answered Lezavim, but Arubian. That's an ability that I once abandoned, Arubian said in a calm tone. The main body is a type of poison, and its target is all existences other than inorganic matter. As long as it is a living thing that is poisoned by my poison, then whether it is blood, bones, organs, or even soul, everything that forms life will be reduced. Therefore, it is called reduction. What the hell is this? Lezavim roared in pain. I'm the son of the Demon King. I'm a surpasser who inherited Lucifer's blood. How can I be poisoned? Even gods can't avoid my poison, let alone a cowardly son of the Demon King like you. Arubian said coldly. Only the Red Dragon Emperor Drake is immune to my poison. It's probably ineffective against the Red Dragon Emperor and the Infinite Dragon God. But other beings will die under my diminished poison. Are you kidding me? Lezavim glared at Varley with blood-stained eyes. So what if you're powerful? Undoubtedly, as long as it's the power of a divine artifact, I can nullify it. You still don't understand? Wally looked at Lezavim with pity. Diminish not only targets you, but also your soul and life. Lezavim was stunned. Chapter 1957. Lezavim had used the Holy Grail to heal his injuries back in the Sipis kingdom. Originally, with the ability to nullify artifacts, the power of the Holy Grail should not work on Lezavim's body. But the power of the Holy Grail was targeted at life, so it could completely bypass Lezavim's artifact nullification and work on him. Just like Noah's penetration could bypass the layer of defense called artifact nullification and work directly on Lezavim, as long as it was not targeted at Lesavim, it would work. And Varley's diminish not only targeted Lesavim, but also his soul and everything that made up his life. Therefore, the diminishing poison could completely bypass the artifact nullification defense and work on Lesavim's life and soul, gradually weakening his life and soul and making him suffer so much that he would rather die. How could this be? Lesavim muttered sluggishly as he endured the pain from his life and soul. How could this be? Varley's eyes were filled with killing intent as he looked at Lesavim's sluggish appearance. The killing intent that was enough to prick one's skin made Lesavim shudder violently as he finally realized what was going on. He might not be able to keep his life. What? What are you trying to do? Lesavim asked with a trembling voice. I'm your grandfather, Varley. Are you trying to attack your grandfather? It would have been fine if Lesavim did not say anything, but once he did, the anger in Varley's heart rose along with his killing intent. Grandfather? Have you done what a grandfather should do? Instigating his son to abuse his grandson for enjoyment, and after his grandson escaped, he killed his son out of boredom. Is this what a grandfather or even a father should do? Lesavim, you don't deserve to be called Lucifer. You don't even deserve to be called a human. Even a demon will be tainted by an existence like you. Varley said in a low voice as he lifted his feet and walked towards Lesavim step by step. There is no place for you in this world. You can just die here. After saying that, Wally removed the armor on his arm, exposing his hand to the air. A surge of mana rose from Wally's hand and gradually materialized into a sword. It was a sword materialized from pure magic. Without the enhancement of a divine artifact, it was forged with the infusion of the demon's magic power. Even Lesavim's divine artifact nullification could not affect it. In addition, Wally was in the form of the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Even if he couldn't deal damage to Lesavim with abilities other than damage reduction, the powerful physical strength of the Tyrannosaurus Rex and the mana sword in his hand were enough to kill Lesavim. Wally knew this, and so did Lesavim. Don't come here. Don't come here. Lesavim could only wriggle his body and retreat. His blood-stained face was filled with fear. Don't come any closer. Looking at Lesavim's ugly appearance, the anger in Varley's heart subsided, leaving only killing intent. That murderous aura directly ignited the fear in Lesavim's heart. Didn't I tell you not to come over? In fear, Lesavim roared, propped up his body, raised his hand, and released a large number of magic power bombs. Countless mana bullets turned into a rain of bullets, and like a storm, they violently shot in Wally's direction. But perhaps because of fear, perhaps because of panic, or perhaps because of the influence of the reducing poison, the magic power bombs released by Lesavim were several times smaller than before. They were only the size of a fist, and their power was not even comparable to that of a superior demon. Wally didn't even bother to defend. He just let a layer of crystal wall flash across his armor. Reflect. Under the low voice, the magic power bombs were all bounced away. They bounced in all directions at a faster speed than when they came, blasting the surrounding ground one by one and becoming riddled with holes. Go away. Go away. Lesavim looked at Wally, who was getting closer and closer, and the fear in his heart rose to the extreme. Ignoring the sharp pain that burst out from the depths of his soul and the blood that began to seep out from under his skin, he desperately squeezed the remaining magic power in his body and shot magic power bombs at Wally. However, the moment the storm-like attacks came into contact with Wally, they were immediately bounced away by the reflecting ability, causing no damage at all. In terms of strength alone, Wally, who used the Tyrannosaurus Rex, was already much stronger than Lesavim. If it weren't for the fact that Lesavim had the ability to nullify the artifact and restrained Wally to a large extent, there was no need to use the reducing poison at all. Wally could easily deal with Lesavim. Now, the poison that even gods couldn't avoid was wreaking havoc in Lesavim's body, destroying everything that made up Lesavim's life bit by bit. As long as the reducing poison was not removed, Lesavim's death was only a matter of time. Even if he didn't add the final blow, Lesavim would die under the effect of the reducing poison. However, Wally didn't want to end things like this. It wasn't that Wally couldn't bear to see Lezoim die under the torture of the reducing poison, but Wally had to kill him personally to settle the grudges of the past. I've said it before, you don't even have the qualifications to be my opponent. For me, you're just a person that must be killed, not an opponent that I can enjoy the pleasure of fighting. Wally said in a deep voice. You should regret it. You should regret torturing me for fun and giving me a chance to escape. You shouldn't have killed me before I grew up. No. No. Lezoim cried bitterly. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. It's my fault. It's all my fault. I beg you, don't kill me. Noah was right, Lezoim was just a nobody. He had the title of the son of the Demon King, but he didn't have any glory inside. He was just like a lowly villain living in this world. His inner ugliness was even denser than some of the human hoodlums. The way he begged for mercy and cried bitterly when he was about to die made Wally feel pity for him. Sure enough, you don't deserve to inherit the blood of Lucifer at all. With that said, Wally finally came in front of Lezoim and raised the magic sword in his hand high. At this moment, the shadow of death struck Lezoim. Lezoim never thought that one day, he would actually die in the hands of his dispensable grandson. For Lezoim, Wally's existence was just to amuse him. Even his son was born on a whim. From the beginning to the end, he never thought of letting Lucifer's bloodline pass down and carry forward it. When Wally, who inherited the power of the White Dragon Emperor and Lucifer, was born, Lezoim was indeed surprised, but then he had a playful mentality. As for worrying about being retaliated against, it was simply a ridiculous thing. Because even if Wally inherited the blood of the Demon King, as a transcendent who fundamentally surpassed the Demon King, it was impossible for Lezoim to lose to a demon. As for the power of the White Dragon Emperor, it was even more of a joke. In front of the ability to nullify artifacts, even if Wally developed the power of the White Dragon Emperor to the peak, it would be futile. With this thought in mind, Lezoim, who had been abusing Wally all this time, finally tasted the bitter fruit today. The saying, deserved it, referred to Lezoim's situation. At that moment, Lezoim could only cry out in fear and despair. No. You can't kill me. If you kill me, I'll kill you. You'll definitely regret it. Hearing that, Wally just looked at Lezoim indifferently. He raised the magic sword in his hand high and suddenly swung it down. You'll definitely regret it, ah. In the desperate roar, a burst of blood splattered around and dyed the surrounding ground red. Wally dispersed the magic sword in his hand and removed the Tyrannosaurus armor. Under the huge consumption, he knelt on the ground. It's over just like that, Wally muttered in a low voice, but he didn't know. Outside, in the human world, in the sky above the ocean where the myth camp and the evil dragon camp were fighting, a spatial rift suddenly appeared. In the pitch-black spatial rift, a huge shadow slowly appeared and gradually opened its eyes. It opened its eyes that were filled with murderous, ferocious, evil, and wild aura. Chapter 1958. Roar, 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 roar. Terrifying roars reverberated in the space, turning into sound waves that resounded throughout the world. Along with the frightening roar, one magic array after another flashed. The magic arrays were not large, only about 1 meter in diameter. However, looking at the magic arrays that flashed one by one, Noah felt his scalp go numb. There was no other reason for this. It was simply because the number of magic arrays was so numerous that it was shocking. The sky was filled with magic arrays. The ground was filled with magic arrays. The space was filled with magic arrays. Even the surrounding flowers, grass, trees, and wood were filled with magic arrays. The countless magic arrays that filled the entire world were imprinted in Noah's eyes. How could Noah's scalp not go numb? However, the initiator of this did not seem to be panting at all. He floated in the air, looked at Noah opposite him, and laughed. This is a treatment that only you can enjoy. Magic is being given away. It's being given away. Amidst the laughter of Aziz Dahaka's 3 heads, vigorous magic power began to surge in the magic arrays that covered the entire world. Noah's sharp senses allowed him to notice this. Almost without thinking, his figure trembled, and he dashed away like lightning. Almost in the blink of an eye, the magic arrays lit up one after another. Immediately, flashes of light burst out from the magic arrays, turning into rays of light. Like intertwined lasers, they enveloped Noah from all directions. At this moment, the world was filled with rays of light, and there was no way to escape. Even though Noah immediately retreated, the magic arrays from the top, bottom, left, and right still shot out beams of light that covered the sky and the earth, surrounding him like a huge net. Under such a terrifying barrage, Noah could not escape at all. Without any suspense, he was engulfed by the rays of light. Boom, 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 boom. A series of shocking explosions rang out in the air. Beams of laser light landed on Noah's body, exploding his skin and tearing apart his flesh. He was bombarded until there was not a single piece of skin left unscathed, and his body was smashed into pieces. Seeing this, Aziz Dahaka was stunned at first, but then he saw it. The guy who was blasted into pieces by the magic arrays was not Noah at all, but a light shadow. Light? Aziz Dahaka's 3 pairs of red jade-like eyes flashed, and then he unhesitatingly deployed a shield-like defensive magic array around him. At the same time, a figure dashed out from behind the 3-headed evil dragon, raised his fist, and threw a punch that could split mountains and rocks. Clang! With a bell-like sound, the defensive magic array behind Aziz Dahaka blocked the punch that carried a terrifying force, causing a shockwave of wind to spread out from the point of the punch. Hum! In the next instant, the defensive magic arrays suddenly rotated, and the mysterious characters and intricate diagrams within them suddenly changed and formed a brand new magic array. Aziz Dahaka actually modified the magic arrays that had already been formed in a split second, and turned the defensive magic arrays into offensive magic arrays. Noah could not help but be surprised by his attainment in magic. However, Noah's surprise didn't last long. Threads that looked like blood suddenly flashed out from the offensive magic arrays, and like maggots in tarsal bones, they spread up Noah's arm that was on the magic arrays. Noah immediately felt it. The threads that were like blood were sucking the blood from his body. In just an instant, Noah felt blood flowing out of his body, and he could not help but be shocked, and he shook his arm. Boom! The threads that were spreading on Noah's arm were immediately shaken off. At the same time, Noah took a step back, and his figure quickly retreated. Not bad. Aziz Dahaka laughed out loud. This is the first time I've seen someone who can easily disperse my magic with brute force. I thought you would use that, another cosmology, to offset it. Aziz Dahaka did not know that even if he did not use another cosmology to offset it, Noah could still be immune to magic below the level of God by relying on the curse resistance unique to the God Slayer. But even so, Aziz Dahaka's magic still had an effect on Noah, which proved that Aziz Dahaka's magic had already reached the level of God. Moreover, even if he used another cosmology, it would most likely not be able to offset Aziz Dahaka's magic, right? Since you know the existence of another cosmology, you're probably on guard against it, right? Noah looked straight at Aziz Dahaka. The magic you're using now is all magic developed by humans, right? Magic developed by humans naturally had a human view of the universe. For such magic, Avesta would not be able to cancel it out. For the Forbidden Dragon, who was known as the master of thousands of magic and was known as the source of magic, it was impossible for the evil dragon not to have mastered human magic. Perhaps the magic that Aziz Dahaka used from beginning to end was all magic developed by humans? Correct. Aziz Dahaka grinned. As a reward, I'll use a forbidden spell in my magic attack this time. As soon as he finished speaking, the magic circles that covered the entire world began to light up one by one. However, this time, what appeared from the magic circle was not a direct attack of light, nor were there threads that could absorb blood. So, what was it that came out of the magic array this time? Purple flames in the shape of skulls. Hurricanes and lightning mixed with curses. Fog of death upon contact. dark ripples that corroded one's soul. In fact, even elemental hounds with life, corrosive fangs, and many spells with unknown effects surged out of the magic arrays one after another. Immediately, thousands of magic spells once again surged out from all directions, covering the sky and covering the earth as they enveloped Noah, not leaving a single gap for him to dodge. If he was hit directly by those magic spells with various effects, even if Noah could rely on his vitality to weaken or eliminate some of them, the remaining magic spells would be enough to blast Noah to the point where not even his bones would be left. This evil dragon's magic attainment is much higher than I imagined. Noah stared at the terrifying magic spells that surged out from all directions and took a deep breath. The divine power in his body was completely converted into magic power. Clang! A burst of dazzling white light suddenly bloomed from Noah's body. It surged out like a tide and covered the space dozens of meters around Noah. The moment the magic spells that surged out from all directions came into contact with the dazzling white light, they were neatly cut apart. White lines spread out from the light and disintegrated along the white lines. Bang, 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 bang. Amidst the sounds of explosions, the magic spells exploded one after another and completely disappeared into the air. What? Dahaka exclaimed in shock. So many forbidden magic spells were blocked so easily. In fact, others should be the ones who were truly shocked. Dahaka was actually able to use forbidden spells in such a simple manner. Furthermore, the number of forbidden spells he cast was so overwhelming that it was impossible to count them all. Furthermore, each forbidden spell was completely different. It was truly shocking. The strength of this evil dragon was just as Sazax had described. Among the evil dragons, cloned Kuwak isn't the only one who has reached the heavenly dragon level. Noah looked at the three evil dragons. Dahaka has also reached the heavenly dragon level. If that was the case, perhaps Apophis, who was also the strongest evil dragon, had also broken through to the heavenly dragon level. Whether or not Clon Kovac could defeat Apophis was still an unknown. Chapter 1959. In the era when all the evil dragons were destroyed, only the clone Kuwak survived. He continued to train himself and finally reached the heavenly dragon level. Although Dahaka and Apophis were the strongest evil dragons on par with the clone Kuwak, they had been destroyed a long time ago and were only recently revived by the Holy Grail. They should not have had so much time to train themselves to reach the heavenly dragon level like the clone Kuwak. However, Noah was certain. Putting Apophis aside, Dahaka must have reached the level of a heavenly dragon. At the very least, Noah felt that Dahaka's strength was definitely on the same level as the clone Kuwak. Since the clone Kuwak was a heavenly dragon, Dahaka, who was on the same level as him, would naturally be a heavenly dragon as well. As for how Dahaka reached the heavenly dragon level, Noah could more or less guess. The Holy Grail. The divine destruction tool that could overturn the principles of life had transformed Dahaka. The proof was that Noah could feel that the dragon kill ability did not seem to work on this evil dragon. The dragon kill was an ability that could cause great damage to dragon-type creatures. The ultimate dragon kill ability like Samuel's could even absorb the power of Orpheus and had an effect on the infinite dragon god. Therefore, the dragon kill was almost an inherent weakness of the dragons. However, Dahaka did not have this weakness. This proved that the Holy Grail had transformed this evil dragon and removed the weakness of the dragon kill. Using the Holy Grail's ability, Dahaka had become a flawless creature. This was something that the vampires who had once wallowed in the mire with the Disaster Syndicate had been pursuing. After becoming a flawless creature, their strength would naturally increase. Dahaka had used this method to surpass the limit and become a heavenly dragon. After all, he was originally the strongest evil dragon after the heavenly dragon level. If he went one step further, he would naturally become a heavenly dragon. Drake's voice sounded in Noah's mind. Based on this, Apophis, who was also revived by the Holy Grail, should have also reached the heavenly dragon level. It would be difficult for the clone Kuwak to defeat him. The three strongest evil dragons, second only to the Sky Dragon, had all reached the Sky Dragon level? Since when was it so easy to reach the Heavenly Dragon level? Forget about the clone Kua, but Az Dahaka and Apophis had only recently been resurrected. Although they had relied on the Holy Grail's modification to cross that line, the Heavenly Dragon level was at the level of the top 10 in the world. For three of such existences to appear at the same time was truly terrifying. However, there are more than 10 people in the world's top 10. There are still some people like Sazax, Achuka, and Typhon who can be ranked in the top 10. Didn't Air Tianlong not enter the rankings when he was alive? Drake said. Therefore, don't think that just because you're ranked, you'll definitely be able to beat the rest of the unranked fellows. Until now, the only one who can guarantee that he's absolutely above the rest of the existences is the infinite dragon god, who's ranked first. This was also a fact. Moreover, Clone Kuvok, Az Dahaka, and Apophis were the strongest evil dragons that were only one step away from the Heavenly Dragon level. It wouldn't be strange for them to cross that line and reach the Heavenly Dragon level at any time. With that thought in mind, the corners of Noah's mouth curved upwards without leaving a trace. Although Az Dahaka was Az Dahaka, and Az Dahaka was Az Dahaka, and both of them were of the same origin, they were not the same person. However, the three-headed demonic dragon of the sect of fire was not to be underestimated no matter which world it was in. It was time for the probing to end here. Drake. Let's go. All right. A crimson gauntlet flashed on one of Noah's arms. Balance breaker. As Noah growled, crimson waves of air suddenly surged from Noah's body. It was as if they could topple mountains and overturn seas, setting off gusts of strong wind that constantly shook the surroundings. Sensing the sudden surge of terrifying aura from Noah's body, Az Dahaka's expression turned solemn. At the same time, unprecedented joy and passion surged in his eyes. You're finally willing to use a divine weapon, and you're using a balance breaker right from the start. This dragon wave is so strong that it makes me happy. Just as Az Dahaka's words fell, the figure opposite him, whose entire body was surging with scarlet-red waves of air, suddenly moved. Like an arrow leaving a bow, it shot out explosively. Amidst the faint sound of the air being torn apart, Noah turned into a crimson meteor and shot straight in Az Dahaka's direction. Come on. Az Dahaka felt his blood boiling, and his entire body surged with shocking energy waves. Immediately afterward, Az Dahaka roared, and a crystal-clear defensive magic array spun out, like a barrier, protecting him inside. However, at the same time, a cacophony of voices rang out. Boost 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 boost. The ability to multiply was constantly activated, causing Noah's power to soar to a terrifying level. Under such circumstances, Noah's speed suddenly increased, and he rushed to Az Dahaka's front in an instant. With a deep sonic boom, his fist suddenly punched out and smashed fiercely on the defensive magical formation in front of Az Dahaka. Boom! A muffled explosion reverberated in the air. On the crystal-clear defensive magical formation, a series of ripples vibrated rapidly. Penetrate. As soon as Shifeng finished speaking, a frightening force suddenly pierced through the defensive magic array. Like an invisible shockwave, the force slammed into Az Dahaka. Boom! Az Dahaka only felt a sudden explosion in front of him, and then his entire body was blasted away. Like a cannonball, he crashed heavily on the ground, raising a thick cloud of dust. However, the thick cloud of dust was immediately blown away by an earth-shattering roar. Ha 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 ha. Blood flowed from the corners of Az Dahaka's three heads' mouths, but as if in ecstasy, they let out joyful laughter. Great! That's the way it should be. It's finally here. An intense battle. It's finally here. The battle I wanted. The three heads of the evil dragon roared in ecstasy, and the sound waves shook the entire world. Buzz 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 buzz. At this moment, the magical formations all over the world suddenly changed. Once again, Az Dahaka used his astonishing magic attainments to modify the spells that had taken shape. Immediately after, forbidden spells burst out from the magical formations all over the sky, the earth, and even the space like a storm. They tore through the air, and with the sound of the atmosphere trembling, they enveloped Noah from all directions. However, this time, Noah did not make any defensive moves. As if he could not see the forbidden spells that were surging towards him, Noah turned into a crimson stream of light and swept towards Az Dahaka without hesitation. In the next second, forbidden spells landed on Noah's body one after another. Boom, 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 boom. Accompanied by a series of explosions, the spells that were enough to flatten a piece of land exploded, causing bursts of fire and impact. In an instant, the entire sky seemed to have been ignited, and the flames set off by the intense explosions spread wildly, covering everything in an instant. In the flames, even the magical formations that Az Dahaka had cast were burned to pieces, and the magical formations all over the sky were destroyed. However, the destruction of the magical formations had no effect at all. If he wanted to, Az Dahaka could continue to cast magical formations all over the sky at any time until his mana was exhausted. Magic, to Az Dahaka, was just that kind of existence. However, it was also because of his profound magical attainments that Az Dahaka could clearly feel. His spells did not cause much damage to his opponent at all. In the next moment, a crimson stream of light burst out from the flames all over the sky. Chapter 1960. Accompanied by the clear sound of something breaking through the air, the flames that filled the entire sky were sliced into two by a crimson meteor. They were then shattered into sparks that scattered in all directions. Meanwhile, the crimson meteor dashed towards Az Dahaka, and with a shake of its arm, a beautiful and gentle white light began to gather. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a dazzling radiance that lit up the entire space. That scene was simply like a person holding a small sun. It made people feel sluggish. Noah raised his arm that was shining with a dazzling white light, clenched it into a fist, and punched Az Dahaka. At first glance, it looked as though a comet had pierced through the pitch-black three-headed evil dragon, and it was a dazzling sight. However, there was a fatal danger hidden in that dazzling sight. If Az Dahaka was hit by the fist that was condensed with the power of crushing, he would definitely be smashed into pieces even though he was a heavenly dragon. Az Dahaka knew this better than anyone else. So, how was Az Dahaka supposed to survive that terrible blow? Resist? That would be useless in the face of a power that could crush everything in the world. Defend? That would be courting death in front of Noah's penetrative power. So, dodge? That was undoubtedly the best choice. However, Az Dahaka had to admit that he was a standard type of mage. Even if he had physical abilities that were far superior to that of humans, he was much weaker compared to Noah. There was no way he could avoid it. However, being unable to use his physical ability to dodge did not mean that Az Dahaka did not have other ways to dodge. At least, Noah undoubtedly saw it clearly. Just as his full-powered attack was about to hit Az Dahaka, the three-headed evil dragon suddenly disappeared without any warning. Clang! In the next second, a dazzling comet landed on the ground, and a dazzling white light covered the entire ground like a violent wave. Boom! Without any suspense, the attack that gathered the shattering magic power easily caused the area covered by the white light to suddenly explode, turning into pieces of equal size. Like pieces of rubble, they blasted in all directions amidst the shockwaves. By the time the light dimmed, a crater with a diameter of several kilometers had appeared on the ground. However, this hole was in the shape of a very neat cube. It was rather strange. Hovering above the crater, Noah furrowed his brows and raised his head to look up. Over there, Az Dahaka had appeared out of nowhere and was floating in the air. His three heads were speaking in joyful voices. What a terrifying strike. It's more powerful than any forbidden technique. I almost died. That sarcastic voice made Noah frown. I see. Noah murmured. Teleportation magic? Apart from this reason, there was no other reason to explain how Az Dahaka suddenly disappeared and dodged that blow. However, if he thought about it carefully, that didn't seem to be a strange thing. Since he could use all kinds of forbidden spells, it was normal for Az Dahaka to be able to use spatial transference magic. Perhaps it wasn't just space-related magic, but also time-related magic. Aziz Dahaka might be able to easily use it. This is troublesome. Thinking back, Maxwell could rely on his teleportation ability to deal with Noah in his heyday, let alone Az Dahaka. In terms of strength, Az Dahaka was definitely above Maxwell. Compared to that time, Noah had lost his authority, sovereignty, and ability value. It was easy to imagine how troublesome it would be to deal with Az Dahaka in such a way. Perhaps Az Dahaka saw Noah's frown, but he laughed out loud. "What's wrong? Did you admit defeat?" "I don't think so. You're a god slayer. Let's fight again. Make me even more excited." Provocative words sounded one after another from Az Dahaka's three heads, making Noah's frown deeper and deeper. At this moment, a voice appeared in Noah's mind. "Oh." Draeger seemed to feel something at first and was surprised for a moment, then suddenly laughed out loud. Has that guy Arubian finally walked out of his long period of confusion? Noah was stunned. Arubian? What happened to Arubian? As if he didn't notice Noah's shock, Draeger continued to laugh. "Well, since you've solved your poison, then I'll solve my flame, too." As soon as the voice fell, a surge of thoughts rushed into Noah's mind, making Noah's spirit suddenly soar, and the magic power in his body began to boil violently. Boom! Suddenly, a burst of surging flames began to burn around Noah. Like an explosion, they began to vibrate and spread out. That flame looked like an ordinary flame. It was slowly burning and emitting heat that was not very hot. In fact, it could even be said to be slightly warm. However, the laughing Az Dahaka's face suddenly changed, and his expression slowly became dignified. This was because an unimaginable sense of danger rose in Az Dahaka's heart. "What kind of flames is that?" Az Dahaka stared at the flames on Noah's body, and as if he thought of something, he muttered to himself. "The flames of the Red Dragon Emperor? It can't be that, right?" While Az Dahaka was surprised, Noah was also shocked. Looking at the blazing flames around him, Noah cried out in astonishment. "What's going on?" While Noah was shocked, Drake's voice also sounded. "This is an ability that I sealed." "An ability that you sealed?" Noah was stunned at first, then immediately remembered. When he was in the Seep's kingdom, Drake did mention this matter. In addition to multiplication, transfer, and penetration, there was an ability that was more dangerous than Forbidden Hand and Tyrannical Dragon. "So, this is flame?" "That's right. This is the blazing flame that I, the Crimson Dragon Emperor, am so proud of. It's the killing move that even the gods and demon kings fear." However, after encountering Arubian, I sealed it away. Now, with the appearance of an artificial artifact, I have unsealed it once again, said Drake. "Try my flames, partner, I believe it won't let you down." Hearing this, Noah took a deep breath and nodded. Boom! Another sound like an explosion. The surging flames on Noah's body soared, turned into raging flames, and spread in all directions. Such a scale finally caused the temperature between heaven and earth to soar. Noah, on the other hand, seemed to have transformed into an erupting volcano, constantly releasing scorching flames from his body. Aziz Dahaka's heart tightened at the sight of the flames that were sweeping towards him like a monstrous wave. Without any hesitation, he once again activated the spatial teleportation spell, and disappeared on the spot. The scorching flames engulfed Az Dahaka's location, but there was no sign of it stopping. Instead, it spread to the entire world at an extremely alarming speed. Not long after, the entire alternate space was enveloped in a sea of fire and began to burn. The air was burning. The earth was burning. The sky was burning. The space was burning. This world had completely turned into a world of flames, like the inside of a volcano, turning into a terrifying red lotus hell. In the face of the flames, the ground quickly turned into scorched earth. The flowers, plants, and trees were also burned to ashes. Even the magic arrays that Aziz Dahaka had set up were burned to nothingness, leaving behind a world of pure flames that was engulfed by a sea of fire. At a certain moment, in a certain space, Az Dahaka, who was shrouded in flames, suddenly appeared. Roar, roar, roar. A terrifying roar rang out from all three of Az Dahaka's heads. But the roar was neither terrifying nor frightening. The reason for that was because that roar actually contained unprecedented pain. Chapter 1961. In an era very far away from the present, before the second sky dragon appeared, although Drake had not reached the level of a sky dragon, he was an existence that even gods and demon kings could not ignore. This was because Drake was a very famous flame dragon. It was famous for its flames that could burn everything. In that era, the Crimson Flame Dragon was an existence that made people tremble with fear. Wherever it passed, it could be said that not even a blade of grass grew. Nothing could survive under its flames. Drake was proud of having such flames and traveled all over the world. Until one day, Drake heard a rumor. White poison dragon. That's right, a white poison dragon. It was said that there was a dragon with a beautiful white body that could use poison that even gods feared. No creature dared to approach that dragon. Once they got close, not only their bodies, but even their souls would be corroded by the poison, and they would die miserably. After hearing this rumor, Drake's first feeling was not curiosity, but emotion. It's very similar to me. Yes, it was very similar to Drake. Although Drake did not know how to use any poison, his flames were also the ultimate flames that could burn even gods. No creature would be willing to get close to him. However, unlike his opponent, Drake's flames weren't an ability he was born with. Instead, it was a sure-kill skill that he developed through constant challenges and training. Therefore, Dalag really wanted to see what kind of existence this unique poison dragon was. Later, Drake found him a Rubian. When he saw a Rubian for the first time, Drake was indeed stunned. That white and flawless body was really as beautiful as the rumor said. However, at the same time, Drake also felt it. Under that beautiful body, there were fatal fangs hidden. That was the poison called reduction. Thus, Drake issued a challenge to a Rubian. As soon as he challenged, Drake was shocked. This was because his omnipotent flames had no effect on a Rubian at all. However, a Rubian's poison also had no effect on Drake. In this way, the result was obvious. Compared to a Rubian, who was born with a terrifying ability and had always relied on his talent to fight and never improved himself, Drake, who had always been fighting and tempering himself, easily defeated a Rubian even though he had lost the power of flame. However, the fact that his flame, that could burn even gods, had no effect on the other party still shocked Drake greatly. Then, Drake had an idea. A dragon that is not afraid of my flames, and has such good talent. If he trains well, he may become a strong opponent. Thus, Drake and a Rubian agreed to fight again and left there. After an unknown amount of time, a Rubian finally came in front of Drake. If it was the current me, it would be impossible for me to lose to you. A Rubian, who came to Drake and said this, had a confidence and pride that he didn't have when they first met. Then, the two began the battle. In that battle, a Rubian did not use his ability to reduce even once. However, a Rubian was much stronger than when they first fought, and even Drake could not defeat him. In the end, both sides suffered. At that time, Drake was really shocked and also very happy. Because he finally met an opponent worthy of competing with all his strength. Then, Drake asked a Rubian why he did not use his ability to reduce. I don't need that power that can't work on you anymore. Leaving such a sentence, a Rubian left. Looking at the other party's confident and carefree back, Drake was stunned for a long time, and then made such a decision. Since you sealed your own poison, then I will also seal my flame. After all, that was a power that could not work on a Rubian. After that, Drake never used the power of flame again, and continued to fight with a Rubian who had sealed his poison. The two of them competed together and improved together. In the end, they even surpassed their limits together and reached the heavenly dragon level. They were known as the two heavenly dragons. Until this day, when he felt that a Rubian's poison had been unsealed, Drake finally released his flame. Roar, roar, roar. Covered in flames, Az Dahaka roared in pain and cast all kinds of magic on himself. Resistance magic that could dispel flames, water magic that could extinguish flames, magic that could remove negative status effects, and even magic that could remove curses. Az Dahaka used almost all the magic he could think of on himself at least once. However, the flames that covered Az Dahaka's entire body did not extinguish and continued to burn his body. Ah! Oh! Roar, roar, roar. Under the scorching flames, Az Dahaka's three heads issued agonizing roars, causing Noah's heart to shudder. Was that flame really so terrifying? Black flames flame. Drake's voice echoed clearly. The ultimate flame that can burn everything to ashes, once ignited, will never be extinguished before it burns everything that is ignited. Even if it is a god, under this flame, the final outcome can only be reduced to ashes. Even if Az Dahaka has reached the level of the heavenly dragon, it will be the same. You have such a terrifying ability? Noah could not help but ask. Then why didn't you say so before? Because this ability was sealed by me. Drake said matter-of-factly. A Rubian's poison was also sealed, so I have no reason to use flame. Anyway, my flame is ineffective against him. Of course, his poison is also ineffective against me. Except for a Rubian, it might not work against the Red Dragon Emperor and the Infinite Dragon God, right? Even so, it was still terrifying. After all, except for the Red Dragon Emperor, the Infinite Dragon God, and the White Dragon Emperor, once touched by this flame, they would almost certainly die. Although Noah did not know what kind of ability a Rubian's poison had, if it was just Drake's flame, Noah was sure that even if it was him, once he was burned, there was no other way to neutralize it other than using another cosmology to offset it. It was an ability that was more dangerous than Forbidden Hand and Tyrannical Dragon. Noah finally understood that this was definitely not an exaggeration. Because even Tyrannical Dragon would be accompanied by the danger of going berserk and dying, and there was no guarantee that it could kill a god. However, once touched by black flame's flame, even a god would not be able to escape the fate of being burned to ashes. Compared to Forbidden Hand and Tyrannical Dragon, Black Flame's flame was indeed more terrifying. While Noah was thinking about this, Aziz Dahaka's roar became weaker and weaker. In the end, he couldn't even use magic anymore. His whole body fell down and crashed heavily onto the ground. He was on the verge of death. Even so, Black Flame's flame continued to burn on Az Dahaka's body, gradually burning it to ashes. Looking at Az Dahaka in this state, Noah's figure slowly descended in front of him, his dark and deep eyes never leaving him for even a moment. Ha! Az Dahaka let out a weak and dying laugh as he looked at the silent Noah and spoke. Don't sympathize with me, this is the end of an evil dragon, there are no exceptions, I know. Noah stared at Az Dahaka. Since you know, why do you still pursue battle? Why? Az Dahaka let out a playful laugh that was full of characteristics. Because being defeated by heroes and courageous people, that is the meaning of an evil dragon like me. After saying this, Az Dahaka's body gradually burned to ashes and turned into nothingness. Noah fell silent again. Above my corpse is justice? Noah closed his eyes. Although there are different evils, you are still the three-headed demon dragon of the fire worship sect. Chapter 1962. Above the boundless ocean, the various races of the Myth faction and the Evil Dragon faction transformed by the Holy Grail were still fighting each other, filling the air with the stench of blood. Below them, the ocean was already dyed with various colors of blood, making it look like a beautiful rainbow. On this colorful ocean, the corpses of the evil dragons and warriors floated on the surface of the water, almost covering the entire ocean. Even under such circumstances, the killing continued. However, in general, the myth faction had the upper hand. That was to be expected. Not to mention that this encirclement and annihilation was carried out according to plan, the fact that the evil dragons were not rational was also a fatal flaw. On top of that, the mythological faction had gathered their forces to surround and annihilate the evil dragon. Only a few elites were sent to fight Lezivim, Euclid, and the legendary evil dragon in the alternate dimension. The battle was almost one-sided. As time passed, the myth faction gained more and more advantages. Piszczysz. When the last evil dragon was slain by an angel of the heavens with a sword of light, the battle that involved all the myth faction finally came to an end. Before that, the battles in the various alternate dimensions had also come to an end. The ones who were sent to the alternate dimensions were Lezivim, Euclid, and the legendary evil dragons. According to the plan, Lezivim and Euclid, who might possess the Holy Grail, would be sent to the alternate dimensions respectively, while Wally and Gulifia would fight them. Apart from Lezivim and Euclid, as Dahaka and Apophis, who were known as the strongest evil dragons and whose strength was second only to the sky dragon level, had to be sent to a different dimension respectively, where Noah and Clon Kuvok would fight. As for Glendale, Radon, and Nidhogg, they were all sent to the last alternate dimension. The ones who fought against the three evil dragons were the Jumanlis, Seedies, and Wallies. The result was gratifying. After Arubian untangled the knot in his heart, admitted to himself, and unleashed his true power, Varley, who used the poison of reduction that could destroy even the gods, easily defeated Lezivim and killed the despicable son of the Demon King with his own hands. Clon Kua, who was also a heavenly dragon, had a fierce battle with Apophis. In the end, Clon Kua paid the price of an arm and crushed Apophis's throat with a bite. Glendale, Radon, and Nidhogg were also very difficult to deal with. If there were only Jumanli's and Seedi's kin, it would be very difficult to defeat them. However, Wally's team also participated in that chaotic battle. The result was different. With the participation of Black Song, Luffy, Monkey, Arthur, and Fenrir, the Jumanli and Seedi families were also victorious. Glendale, known for his sturdy scales, could not stop the fangs that could kill even the gods, and was killed by Fenrir. Radon's barrier and defense were very difficult to deal with, but Laya's destructive magic was also known for destroying everything. With the help of the Jumanli's kin, she successfully destroyed the evil dragon. Nidhogg, on the other hand, was an idiot. In order to fight for food, he charged forward without thinking at all, only to have his innards crushed by Kitten and Blacksong's divine spells. He could not have been more dead. Without the help of the Holy Grail, the three legendary evil dragons that could not be revived did not even have their souls escape. Luffy sealed them with magic, and they could never be revived again. As for Euclid, no one expected that the direct heir of the Lucifergus family was not weaker than Gulifia at all. He had the power of a demon king. Gulifia, who also had the power of a demon king, almost lost to Euclid. Fortunately, compared to Euclid, Gulifia was still slightly better. In the end, she managed to knock her brother to the ground. In addition to Aziz Dahaka, who had been burned to ashes by Noah, the battle in the 5 different dimensions also ended with a great victory. As a result, apart from Euclid who was captured alive by Gulifia, the rest of the people who were sent to the alternate dimension were all killed. In other words, the disaster squad was completely annihilated. In this war, the myths had won a complete victory. Oh, 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 oh. Above the multicolored ocean with countless floating corpses, warriors of various races raised their weapons high and cheered for victory. On an island, Euclid, who was tied up with mana-restraining ropes, was brought before Sazax by Gurifia. Euclid Lucifergus. Sazax said as he looked at Euclid, who was tied up and covered in wounds. As for you, I have a lot of things to say to you. I also have a lot to say to you. Euclid met Sazax's gaze and said expressionlessly. After all, to me, you're the one who took away the position of Lucifer that I was supposed to support. You're also the one who took away my sister. So, I think we should have a good talk. Sazak smiled faintly. When we return to the underworld, I hope you can listen to me. Euclid didn't answer. Sazak didn't know whether he was disdainful or acquiescing. He turned his head away. Beside him, Noah didn't pay attention to Euclid. Instead, he turned his gaze to Clone Kovac. Looking at Clone Kovac's tired face and shoulder that was missing an arm, Noah approached and asked, "Are you alright?" "I'm fine." Clone Kovac didn't even turn his head and answered directly. "With Apophis as your opponent, you're already lucky to be able to defeat him." "That's true, but I'm the one who asked you to come here." Noah sighed. "I'm partly responsible for your injury." "You're wrong." Clone Kovac looked at Noah. His pair of different colored eyes, one gold and one black, stared at Noah. "Although I promised you to come here to fight, I also made a request at that time. That is, the opponent must be qualified. I chose Apophis myself, and I paid for this arm. It has nothing to do with you. Then you should at least give me a chance to compensate you, right?" Noah couldn't help but roll his eyes. "I'll find a way to help you recover your arm." Clone Kovac didn't say anything else. He seemed to agree with Noah's approach. In this regard, Asashel laughed. "Why don't you try the power of the Holy Grail? It just so happens that Wally has taken the Holy Grail back from Lezavim." Right, there was still the Holy Grail. With that tool of divine destruction that could subvert the principles of life, even Clone Kovac could be resurrected after death, let alone recover an arm injury. Wally. Asashel looked at Wally in the distance. "Where's the Holy Grail?" Wally didn't answer. He only raised a hand and unfolded a magic formation. From the magic formation, a resplendent golden cup appeared and fell into Wally's hand. Holding the Holy Grail, Wally was about to hand it to Asashel when Euclid suddenly raised his head and cried out in shock. You killed Lord Lezavim?" "What?" Asashel said with a smile that wasn't a smile. "Is there a problem?" "He deserved to die," Wally said mercilessly. "There's no reason to keep him alive." Hearing Wally and Asashel's words, Euclid's face suddenly changed and became extremely pale. "It's over," Euclid muttered sluggishly. "It's all over now." Looking at Euclid's deathly pale face, everyone who thought that Euclid couldn't accept Lezavim's death immediately noticed something strange. Even Noah noticed it. The expression on Euclid's pale face was not one of sadness or pain, but of fear. That fear made everyone present look at each other in dismay. Noah's brows furrowed tightly. He subconsciously felt that something was wrong. Just when Noah wanted to step forward and ask Euclid, two petite figures suddenly flashed beside him. It was Orpheus and Lilith. The two dragon gods raised their heads and looked up with an extremely rare dignified expression. At the same time, a terrifying pressure descended from the sky, suppressing everyone's body. Chapter 1963. At this moment, regardless of whether it was Noah's group on the island or the warriors of the various mythical forces above the ocean, all of them seemed to have been frozen in place by the space, and their bodies stiffened. An unimaginable chill, like an electric current, rushed from everyone's back and went straight to their brain, making everyone's eyes widen slightly. Noah's pupils also shrank fiercely, and even his fists subconsciously clenched. Orpheus and Lilith, who suddenly appeared, stared at the sky from beginning to end, attracting Noah's attention. When Noah's eyes turned to the sky, and the scene in the sky was in his field of vision, he finally saw it. He saw a black shadow. A black shadow with a ferocious appearance slowly emerged from the space that seemed to be split open. That black shadow, although a little far away, Noah still saw its full appearance clearly. It was a ferocious alien. Its body easily exceeded several hundred meters in size. Its body was the shape of some kind of beast. There were 7 heads in total. Some were like lions. Some were like cheetahs. Some were like black bears. Some were like dragons. The 7 heads were completely different. Even the body with the shape of a beast had the characteristics of a variety of creatures, which was very strange. If there was any special feature of such an alien, it would probably be the horns on its head. There were 10 horns on the alien's head. On the 10 horns, there was a crown-like crown. And on the crown, 3 numbers were clearly engraved. 666. Such an alien slowly emerged from a crack in space, as if it was pushed out by something, and appeared in the sky. The heads of the aliens seemed to be sleeping, and they all closed their eyes. However, on the huge ferocious appearance of the alien, there was an indescribable, extremely evil and ominous frenzy that numbed the 5 senses and was enough to prick the skin. Constantly fluctuated, and it was getting stronger and stronger. The oppressive feeling that made the whole world freeze, and made all the Asura gods and Buddhas shiver, came from the evil and ominous frenzy. Only at this moment, Noah understood. That was not an ordinary thing. That was a monster that could turn this world into a scorched earth and pure hell. That evil and ominous arrogance was not in the least inferior to Aziz Dakaha, who was ranked in the top 3 of the final human trial in the box. At the same time, the rest of the people also began to notice the terrible beast in the sky. What is that? One by one, the famous Asura gods and Buddhas from various mythical forces stared blankly at the beast with the terrifying frenzy, and for a moment, even their minds became blank. All the Asura gods and Buddhas lost the ability to react, and all looked up at the terrible alien, without a word, making the entire sky above the ocean became dead silent. Only Michael and Asashel looked at the number 666 engraved on the beast's crown, and their faces turned pale in an instant. How could this be? How could this be? Michael had never lost his composure like this before as he murmured in disbelief. Why? Why did it appear here? Damn it. Asashel's entire body began to tremble. That thing actually exists? In the past, Michael and Asashel's loss of composure would definitely make everyone's jaws drop. However, at this moment, no one could laugh at Michael and Asashel. Even if it was Noah, it would be the same. Because after seeing the number on the ferocious beast's crown, no one would not understand what it represented. In the Bible's revelation, the number 666 represented the devil and had the meaning of blasphemy. The origin of this number was a beast recorded in the Bible's revelation. It was said that the beast had 7 heads, 10 horns, and a crown on the horns, and 3 blasphemous numbers were engraved on the crown, 666. It was an emperor beast on par with the Great Red, who was known as the true Red Dragon Emperor. The chapter that recorded its existence was right next to the Great Red. However, its existence had not been confirmed by anyone until now. No one could find it. Everyone had only heard of it. If it was said that the mythical forces here were just legends to humans, then its existence was considered a legendary level to all the mythical forces in the legends. It was a legend among legends, a legend among legends. And those who knew of its existence all called it this. Beast Emperor 666, Trihexa. It was as famous as the Great Red, and its strength was comparable to the Red Dragon Emperor and the Infinite Dragon God in the legends. Now, this Beast Emperor had appeared in front of all the mythical forces. In the worst possible form. In the next second, under the gaze of all the Asura gods and Buddhas of the mythical forces, the ferocious beast in the sky slowly opened its eyes. Lowering its head, looking at the densely packed Asura gods and Buddhas that almost covered the entire sea, the eyes of the Beast Emperor 666's 7 heads were filled with ruthlessness and madness. A terrifying roar fell from the sky like a storm, smashing down from above, as if an invisible heavy pressure, fiercely hitting the Asura gods and Buddhas of the mythical forces. At this moment, everyone present, whether it was gods, demons, humans, angels, or vampires, all felt as if their souls were being ruthlessly torn apart, and their eardrums were instantly shattered. Suddenly, all the Asura gods and Buddhas covered their ears, lowered their heads, and let out painful screams. And this action made all the Asura gods and Buddhas unable to hear it. They could not hear Athasiel's hoarse shout. Run! Almost at the moment when Athasiel's shout was easily swallowed up by the Beast Emperor 666's roar, the Beast Emperor 666 in the sky moved. It raised one of its 7 heads, opened its ferocious beast mouth, and spat out a huge fireball into the dense crowd below. A huge fireball that was as big as a burning star, like a falling sun, fell at a terrifying speed. The fireball evaporated the atmosphere, burned the water vapor, and at the same time the temperature of the entire world rapidly rose to an alarming degree. It fell heavily on the sea like a meteorite. With a deafening roar, the huge fireball exploded, turned into a terrifying sea of fire, and instantly covered a large area of the sea. In the sea of fire, the sea water evaporated and became boiling like magma. In the sea of fire, the atmosphere was burned up, and it became extremely hot like a volcano. In the sea of fire, the unfortunate Asura gods and Buddhas that were engulfed in the sea of fire did not even have time to scream before they were all burned to ashes by the flames and disappeared without a trace. Whether it was humans, demons, angels, fallen angels, vampires, or even gods, they all became extremely fragile and lost their precious lives in an instant. Looking at all of this, the most primitive fear finally rose in everyone's hearts. The terrible roar that was enough to tear the soul continued to rage in the sky, revealing the beginning of the end. Chapter 1964. Euclid knelt on the ground and looked at the terrifying beast in the sky. He seemed to be in a daze as he murmured in his sleep. 666 really woke up, seeing Euclid's expression. How could they not understand? The appearance of the Beast King 666 was definitely related to the cluster of disasters. Bastard! Asashel grabbed Euclid's collar and said angrily. What did you do? Euclid seemed to have woken up at this moment. He gritted his teeth and fell into silence. Looking at Euclid's reaction, the anger in Asashel's heart grew stronger. Just as Asashel was about to attack Euclid, Sazak stared at Euclid with a serious expression that was never seen before. Tell us, why did the Beast King 666 appear? Hearing this, Euclid looked up and glanced at Sazak, then at Gulifia who was staring at him. He laughed self-deprecatingly. Because the Beast King 666 is our trump card. Your trump card? Michael asked in disbelief. In other words, the cluster of disasters has always had 666. No, we only found 666 after obtaining the Holy Grail. Euclid shook his head. The Holy Grail can subvert the principles of life. When we used the Holy Grail to revive the evil dragon, we coincidentally discovered 666's life force and found it at the end of the world. The end of the world? Asashel's eyes widened. So, the Beast King 666 has always been there, and that's why it wasn't discovered? That's right. Euclid said expressionlessly. Moreover, when we found it, it was sealed by countless forbidden spells and fell into an endless slumber. That's why the Beast King 666 has always been a legend. No one has been able to prove its existence. There is only one person, no, one God. A God is very sure that it exists. Euclid looked at Michael. That is the creator of the heavens and angels, the creator of the divine artifacts, the God of the Bible. Michael's expression suddenly became pained. That's right, the only one who was certain that 666 existed was the God of the Bible. Otherwise, there would be no record of the Beast Emperor in the Bible, and it would not be listed next to the real Red Dragon Emperor. I'm afraid that before we found 666, the only one who discovered 666 was the God of the Bible, Euclid said in a low voice. Then, the God of the Holy Bible might have realized how terrifying the Beast Emperor, who was comparable to the God Emperor Crimson Dragon and the Infinite Dragon God, was. He discovered that the Beast Emperor had a wild and ferocious nature that could destroy everything. He would definitely not be like the God Emperor Crimson Dragon and the Infinite Dragon God, who would not interfere with the world. If 666 appeared, it would definitely lead the world to destruction. So, the God of the Bible sealed 666 with countless prohibition-level seals? Sazax took a deep breath. So that's why the God of the Bible died. These words were completely baffling. However, many of the people present showed understanding expressions and fell into an indescribable silence. Noah also understood why Sazax would say that. Because the death of the God of the Bible was originally filled with many mysteries. That was a God who occupied the position of a mythical God all by himself, and was known as the only God by people. He was a God who could even develop divine weapons that could give humans powers comparable to the existence of other races. Such a God, conservatively estimated to be at least in the top 10 in the world, and might even be more powerful than the God of destruction, Shiva, who was previously ranked second. In the end, how did such a powerful God die? In the ancient war between the demons, angels, and fallen angels, he perished together with the 4 demon kings. What kind of joke was this? An existence who occupied a mythical God all by himself, who could even develop divine weapons, and who was at least in the top 10 in the world, perished together with the 4 demon kings. That was simply impossible. However, the God of the Bible had died in the war with the 4 demon kings. This was something that Michael, Asashel, and the others had all witnessed. Then, why did the God of the Bible end up perishing together with the 4 demon kings? The reason was only answered at this moment. In order to seal the Beast Emperor, who was at the same level as the Red Dragon Emperor and the Infinite Dragon God, it was not difficult to imagine how weak the God of the Bible would be and how much his power would be reduced. In such a state, participating in the war between the demons, angels, and fallen angels, facing the 4 demon kings, and finally perishing together was not strange. Unfortunately, the Beast Emperor 666, who indirectly caused the death of the God of the Bible, was found by a bastard like Lezavim. Everyone could even imagine how excited Lezavim was when he saw the Beast Emperor 666. After that, in order to unlock the seal of the Beast Emperor 666, Lord Lezavim tried everything, but the speed of unlocking the seal was very slow, so Lord Lezavim could not use it to attack the major mythical powers at all. Euclid's voice began to tremble. However, just in case, Lord Lezavim also engraved a spell that was connected to his life on the Beast Emperor 666. Once he dies, his soul will become 666's nourishment, and it will forcibly skip all the unlocking procedures and directly unlock the seal of 666 and awaken him. Wah! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. In other words, the appearance of the Beast Emperor 666 was all because of Lezavim? Bastard! Asashel fiercely hammered the tree beside him, smashing the thick tree into pieces with a bang. That bastard! I see. Varley was also mad with hatred. That's why he said that if I kill him, I'll definitely regret it. Just when everyone was having a hard time adapting to the sudden information, an earth-shattering roar resounded again. Boom! As if an atomic bomb had been detonated, a huge fireball fell from mid-air and exploded in the dense crowd of Asura gods and Buddhas, setting off a violent shock wave and a terrifying sea of fire that engulfed the warriors one by one. Monster. What? What do we do? Attack. Hurry up and attack. Stop joking. We'll die. Seeing their comrades die one after another in front of them, everyone panicked. Their faces were filled with fear. Under such circumstances, 666 was still roaring in the sky. His 7 heads spat out huge fireballs that were as hot as the sun, causing the sea of fire to burn on the sea, creating a space of water and fire. However, in this space, the Asura gods and Buddhas of the various mythical organizations were facing a fatal disaster. No! We can't continue watching like this. Asashel shouted in a low voice. Get ready to fight. It's useless. Euclid laughed bitterly. That's an existence that's completely different from us. It's the Beast Emperor from the Revelation of the World. Unless it's the Emperor of God Red Dragon or the Infinite Dragon God, it's impossible to defeat it. Right, the Infinite Dragon God. Asashel turned his head and looked at Orpheus and Lilith. Orpheus, Lilith, hurry up and stop that beast emperor. No, we can't do it. Orpheus shook his head without hesitation. I'm no match for 666 now. It's dangerous. Lilith kept staring at 666 in the sky, her petite body trembling. The beast emperor is very dangerous. Seeing Orpheus and Lilith in such a state, everyone's face darkened. If it's the infinite dragon god in its complete form, it's still possible. But now, Orpheus and Lilith have no way of resisting 666, Euclid said stiffly. It's over for this world. However, at this moment, Wally said sarcastically. In the past, perhaps only the Emperor of God Red Dragon and the Infinite Dragon God could fight against the Beast Emperor from the revelation of the world. But now, isn't there another person who can defeat 666? Wally raised his head and looked at the sky. Haven't you noticed that that person is no longer here? Hearing Wally's words, everyone was shocked. Bam! At the same time, a muffled thunder-like sound resounded in the sky. Chapter 1965. Boom! When the thunder-like muffled sound resounded in the sky, everyone saw it. The Beast Emperor, who was like the embodiment of Doomsday just a second ago, seemed to have been hit by something at this moment. His huge body rubbed against the air, and with a sharp piercing sound, he flew backward. Even the burning sea of fire on the surface of the sea was shaken off, and he smashed straight into the ocean. In an instant, the entire ocean seemed to have been stirred up. Huge splashes were set off, causing the splashes to turn into huge waves that surged in all directions. At the same time, a circle of shock waves also spread out on the surface of the sea, like a storm, causing waves to rise again and again. The scene was very spectacular. Looking at this scene, the Asura gods and Buddhas from the myth's forces who were in deep trouble just a second ago were all stunned. On the island, Athaziel, Sazax, Michael, Wally, and the others all raised their heads and looked at the sky. They saw that at the original position of the Beast Emperor 666, a figure that was shaking with crimson airwaves had appeared there without them noticing. On his body, the crimson airwaves were like a hurricane that could topple mountains and overturn seas. They surged violently and blew away the surrounding clouds. Not only that, but a burst of gorgeous starlight also lingered back and forth around the crimson airwaves, turning into a Milky Way that wandered constantly. It looked extremely beautiful. In direct proportion to that beauty, an extremely terrifying aura continued to rise. It was like layers upon layers of shock waves that shook the entire world. Seeing this, how could everyone still not understand? The Beast Emperor 666 was attacked, and he was smashed down from the high sky into the sea. Almost all of the Asuras and Buddhas from the various mythological forces knew who that person was. Because, long ago, the other party's name of the God-Slayer had spread to all the myth's forces. It was not until this moment that everyone remembered. That's right. They still had a trump card on their side. It was not that there was no resistance. Oh. At that moment, all the Asura gods and Buddhas from the myth's forces cheered again. However, the only response to the enthusiastic cheers was an angry voice that said, "Don't worry. All of you, stand down." Noah frowned, and his voice echoed clearly. If you have the time to cheer, why don't you hurry up and run for your life? Do you think your life is too long if you continue to stay there? The cheers that resounded through the clouds seemed to have been abruptly cut off and came to an abrupt halt. However, the Asuras, gods, and Buddhas from the various mythological forces were not the slightest bit angry. Instead, they seemed to have just realized that this place was not suitable for them to stay for long. At this moment, the surface of the sea that was stirred up a large amount of water seemed to be boiling as it fluctuated. Dong! Following an earth-shattering explosion, the surface of the sea suddenly exploded. It was as if the entire sea was blown apart, leading straight to the bottomless seabed. There, the huge mutated Beast Emperor stepped on the wet ground and let out a roar that shook the sea. The terrifying roar carried an unparalleled pressure. Not only did it shake the entire sea open, exposing the bottom of the sea to the air, but it also turned the sound waves into waves that were even more turbulent than the sea waves. They swept out in all directions like a storm. Under the roar that seemed to be able to tear the soul apart, the Asuras, gods, and Buddhas from the mythological forces once again held their heads and let out a muffled groan. As a result, even Asashel and the others on the island were affected and felt extremely uncomfortable. Quick! Asashel resisted the trembling in his heart and did not hesitate to use his power to let his voice reach everyone's ears. Get out of here quickly! Only then did everyone come to their senses and hurriedly retreat. For a moment, they were like ants scattering in all directions. Their movements were incomparably fast, causing the densely packed crowd that almost covered the entire surface of the sea to instantly retreat completely. Until then, the beast emperor that had silently shown itself rose from the bottom of the sea and flew into the air. Splash! The seawater that had been forcibly separated was like a flood that had opened the floodgates. It submerged the exposed seabed, causing the entire sea to surge. It was quite a shocking scene. Noah stared in the direction of 666. Although its appearance looked like it was pieced together by various creatures, its behavior was like that of a primate. Its body was leaning forward, and there were 4 thick limbs on its body. Its legs were thicker than its arms, and it was a bit like a Jurassic dinosaur. It did not have wings, but it could still fly in the air. Its hair was black, and there were hard things that looked like scales everywhere, as well as bright red protrusions that looked like blood. There were the same number of tails as the heads, and they were also of different shapes. Some were like lions, some were like bears, some were like leopards, and some were like dragons. They formed a correspondence with the heads. At first glance, it looked like it was pieced together by 7 animals. It was not so much a 4, but rather a 7. But it was such a strange appearance that brought a kind of fear from the bottom of one's heart. The most frightening thing was the emotions that were surging in the eyes of the 7 heads. Ruthlessness. Ferocity. Cruelty. Coldness. It was almost a collection of all the emotions that a beast that had lost its mind should have. Not to mention, its aura was so strong that it was terrifying, as if it could destroy the world. Even the sky was affected by it. Thick layers of dark clouds appeared, and thunder began to flash. In this world, Noah had only felt such a terrifying aura from Orpheus when he was at his peak. I didn't expect that there was such a monster hidden in this world. Noah's eyes gradually became serious. No wonder the God of the Bible wanted to seal it. What do you plan to do? Drake's voice sounded in Noah's mind. Although you have the power of another cosmology, and won't lose to 666S beast, but frankly speaking, with your power and 666S power, if you fight here, the entire human world will be turned upside down and usher in real destruction. So, we can only end this quickly. Noah said without any hesitation. Drake, is there a problem? Are you going to use that? Drake seemed to understand what Noah was going to do. Well, it was still incomplete before, but after Wally Lucifer demonstrated it once, I've almost adjusted it. Now, I can definitely fully exert the power of that form. Hearing this, Noah suddenly smiled and stepped forward. Boom! Suddenly, the crimson waves that fluctuated around Noah's body suddenly became violent and turned into a shocking storm. With Noah as the center, it violently surged to the entire world. A violent force rose from the crimson chi wave and soared into the sky, dispersing the thick layer of dark clouds in the sky. In the distance, Wally, who had retreated to a safe distance, was shocked. He suddenly raised his eyes, looked at Noah, and was extremely surprised. This feeling, is it that? As soon as his voice fell, a pair of light wings flashed out from Wally's back. That's right. This domineering aura that seems to intend to conquer everything in the world, it can only be that. Arubian's voice sounded from the light wings. Wally, it seems that your opponent has also completed that. Under the gaze of Wally and Arubian, in the crimson waves that turned into a storm in mid-air, Noah's voice seemed to resound in everyone's heart as he chanted. I awaken as the Crimson Dragon Emperor who fuses the power of God-slaying into himself, eternal salvation through the infinite world, to the tyrannical path. Become the Emperor of the Deep Dragon, guide thee to the limit of true red and the limit of fantasy. Under the tyrannical incantation, the crimson storm that raged in the entire sky fluctuated wildly, and its color gradually became deeper. Juggernaut Overdrive. Chapter 1966. Wang. A clear and audible tremor reverberated in the air above the surging ocean, covering up the thunder and lightning in the sky. Violent waves of air swept back and forth, carrying an extremely tyrannical aura. They slowly converged and turned into a dragon shadow, covering Noah's body. That dragon's shadow was almost no different from when Noah used Forbidden Hand. However, its color had changed from scarlet to true red. The color was as deep as fresh blood and was extremely dazzling. Under the cover of that true red dragon shadow, Noah's aura skyrocketed several times. Feeling that tyrannical aura, all the Azuras present held their breaths, feeling that even breathing became difficult. As expected. Varley stared at that true red figure. As expected, he also improved the Tyrannosaurus Rex and developed the extreme Tyrannosaurus Rex strength without any side effects. Before heading to the territory of the vampires, Noah had obtained a total of 4 rewards during the 1 month of special training for the Jimin's dependents. 1 was an eternal and fixed enhancement. 1 was a divine power that increased the shaping property. 1 was magic power that could conjure up imagination. Another was a transformation targeted at T-Rex. On the day that the artificial artifact was completed, Drake told Noah that due to the artificial artifact's reappearance, Gauntlet could not only use Forbidden Hand, but could also use T-Rex. However, the form of the Tyrannosaurus Rex was originally a curse and ominous power. Even if Noah could rely on the 3rd perpetual motion machine and his own special physique to be immune to most of the side effects, it was still not a form suitable for long-term development. Since then, Noah had been pondering over how to improve T-Rex. During the period of special training for Jimenez's kin, Noah's 4th gain was that T-Rex's improvement had already produced results. Since then, Noah had already been able to use T-Rex without any side effects. However, that power was not complete. There were 2 reasons for that. 1 was because T-Rex's form reproduced Drake's power when he was alive. Even if he used it, he could only reach the heavenly dragon level at most and would not be able to advance any further. As for Noah, he was already able to reach the heavenly dragon rank when he only used Forbidden Hand. If he used Tyrannosaurus, which could only reach the heavenly dragon rank, it would not increase his strength by much. In other words, at that time, the Tyrannosaurus would be in a form that was tasteless to eat but a pity to abandon. Another reason was that Noah's gauntlet was a subspecies of gauntlet, while the Tyrannosaurus Rex that was recreated by the artifact was the original gauntlet. After all, Noah had never used Tyrannosaurus before. He hadn't merged Tyrannosaurus with his avatar, so he naturally couldn't recreate a Tyrannosaurus that was suitable for him. Under the influence of the inappropriate Tyrannosaurus form, the buff Noah received could be said to be negligible. Therefore, at that time, Tyrannosaurus was not complete, and there were many things that needed to be improved. It wasn't until he saw Wally's Tyrannosaurus that didn't have any side effects and had room for growth that Noah was inspired to improve Tyrannosaurus. The final Tyrannosaurus form that was born was the current form. True Red Tyrannosaurus. Once used, it would recreate all of Drake's power when he was alive, and superimpose it on Noah's body. Moreover, this form was the same as Wally's Tyrannosaurus. They both had room for growth. And Noah himself had a 4-digit level. As for Drake, when he was at his peak, he was close to the 4-digit level. With the superimposition of the two, once Noah used Tyrannosaurus, his power would exceed the 4-digit level, reaching the same level as Orpheus and Lilith, between the 3-digit and 4-digit levels. In other words, once he used Tyrannosaurus, even without the power of another cosmology, Noah would have the power to rank first in this world. Of course, if that was the case, he wouldn't be able to defeat 666. That was because the Beast Emperor of the Tacit Record was in existence on the same level as the Red Dragon Emperor and the Infinite Dragon God. His power had reached the 3-digit level. Therefore, if he wanted to end the battle quickly, Noah had to use all of his current power. Avesta, activate. Counteracted in turn. Another cosmology. Suddenly, the bright starlight that shone like the Milky Way bloomed on the Red Dragon's shadow, as if the Red Dragon's shadow was draped in a light cloak made of stars. It was incomparably beautiful. At the same time, Noah's power surged crazily again, causing the red chi wave and the bright starlight to rise like burning flames, shooting into the sky and into the clouds. Gah! The pitch-black Beast Emperor seemed to have noticed that Noah's power had surged to a level that could threaten him, and immediately let out a threatening roar. Unfortunately, that roar was like announcing the start of the battle, exploding the air. Noah, whose body was surging with red chi wave and bright starlight, raised his hand high up, and a ball of heat that could melt steel suddenly gathered above his palm. The heat condensed into a huge fireball that was like a burning sun, and like a falling star, it burned the surrounding atmosphere. That was the power of 666. Didn't you have a lot of fun spitting fire just now? Noah's eyes flashed with a fierce light. Then you should also have a taste of what it feels like to be ignited by fire. Noah's raised arms suddenly shook after his words sounded. A huge fireball shot out, carrying a terrifying heat that steamed the ocean below until waves of water vapor were emitted as it shot in the direction of 666. The Beast Emperor's 666 heads roared at the same time, and all of them opened their ferocious mouths. They gathered the same amount of heat in their mouths, and under the fluctuations of the flames, they spat out huge scorching fireballs one after another. As a result, the 8 burning fireballs that were like miniature suns all streaked across the space, with the momentum of burning everything in their path, bombarding together heavily. Boom! The sound of the explosion reverberated through the world, stirring up a violent hurricane-like shock wave that overturned the entire sea. An incomparably violent sea of fire exploded at the point of collision. In an instant, it almost covered the entire sky, dyeing the thick layer of dark clouds with a fiery red color. The Shura gods and Buddhas of the myths, who had retreated to a safe distance, looked at the earth-shattering collision. Their bodies had long been roasted by the amazing heat of the sea of fire, and their faces were covered with cold sweat. They were already so far away, but they were still sweating all over from the heat. If the distance was closer, even if all the people here were legendary creatures, and there were even gods, they would still be melted by the terrifying heat, right? The battle had just begun, and it was already so terrible. They are all monsters, it was Unknown who spat out a trembling voice, but it made everyone agree with him from the bottom of their hearts. However, just as everyone was thinking this, the situation suddenly changed. Boom! In the violent sea of fire that covered the entire sky, there was a flame that suddenly began to distort. Then, the surrounding flames were burned out. What? Azazel was shocked. The flame is burning? A burning flame? Sazax was also surprised. What kind of flame is that? Only Wally's eyes lit up, and he immediately recognized the flame. Ah, Arubian, don't tell me that's right. Arubian's voice was unprecedentedly dignified. That's the fire of the Red Dragon Emperor Drag, the fire of the black flames that can burn everything in the world. It's definitely not inferior to my reducing poison at all. It's an ultimate fire that even gods fear. Even if the target is also a fire, that fire can burn it to nothing. As if to prove that Arubian was telling the truth, black flame's flame burned out all the surrounding flames. Immediately, it spread out without slowing down and directly shrouded the Beast Emperor 666. Ga 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 ga. The Beast Emperor 666 let out a painful roar. Chapter 1967. Bang! On the body of the huge beast, the flames continued to burn, accompanied by a series of explosions, causing the Beast Emperor 666 to roar towards the sky, its voice filled with pain. The Asuras, gods, and Buddhas who had retreated to a safe distance could clearly see that Beast Emperor 666's flesh and blood were incinerated into ashes during the process of black flames burning. However, he recovered very quickly. In the Bible, it was indeed recorded that even if one was injured, one would immediately recover. Originally, his power was far beyond that of the gods in all mythological systems. In the end, he also had the ability equivalent to an immortal body. There was no situation more troublesome than this. However, at this moment, the Asuras, gods, and Buddhas were no longer looking at the Beast Emperor with fear in their eyes. Instead, there was only sympathy and pity. This was because Li Yan's flames would never be extinguished before the target was burned to ashes. Under such circumstances, although the Beast Emperor's regenerative ability had saved its life and prevented it from dying, it had also made it endure the most terrifying flames in the world. It had experienced the pain of being burned by the flames over and over again. In the end, it was worse than death. Caw 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 caw. The Beast Emperor continued to roar in pain as it tossed and turned in the sky. Its huge body was repeatedly being burned and healed. The pain during this period was truly unbearable, and it was in so much pain that it wished it was dead. Beast Emperor 666 could only roar at the sky as he dived into the ocean. The moment the Beast Emperor rushed into the ocean, a clear sound like a flame being extinguished by water could be heard. However, the flames on Beast Emperor 666's body were not extinguished by the endless seawater. Instead, it burned the surrounding seawater, causing dense steam to fill the sky. Caw 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 caw. Unable to extinguish the flames on its body, the Beast Emperor could only howl in pain. Everywhere it went, the seawater would evaporate in an instant, causing a large amount of water vapor to rise from the sea and cover the entire space. It must be very painful, right? Noah looked down at the Beast Emperor, who was desperately rolling in the sea and stirring up the entire sea into chaos. There was no trace of pity in his deep, dark eyes. Then I'll release you immediately. As soon as he finished speaking, Noah's figure immediately swooped down and turned into a bullet that was shot out of the barrel. He swept across the space, bringing with him a true red airwave and resplendent starlight. Like a meteor falling from the sky, he violently rushed in front of the Beast Emperor 666. Clang! A dazzling white light suddenly blossomed from one of Noah's hands. As if he had caught the light, Noah raised his hand and gently placed it on the Beast Emperor 666's body. Wang! The dazzling white light immediately surged towards Beast Emperor 666's body like a tide, covering Beast Emperor 666 along with the flames that were burning unceasingly. In the next second, the Beast Emperor 666's body suddenly trembled, and its roaring stopped abruptly. White lines spread out from his body, slicing the huge alien body into cubes of equal size. Dong! When such an explosion resounded, the Beast Emperor's body, which had stirred up a large amount of water vapor in the sea, exploded, turning into an extremely uniform square. On the square, the flames of the black flames suddenly expanded, burning the square into ashes one by one, leaving no trace behind. The entire place suddenly became silent, leaving only the sound of the sea rolling up and down. An indescribable silence pervaded the air. Did it succeed? No one knew who asked this question, but no one answered. Everyone opened their eyes wide and stared at the position where the Beast Emperor 666 had been a second ago, trying to find a trace of clues. On the other hand, Asashel, Sax, Michael, Wally, Zamonli's family, Sidi's family, Klon Kovac, and the others were closely staring at Noah, who was floating on the surface of the sea. Their expressions didn't relax at all. This was because the Beast Emperor 666's wild aura, which seemed to be able to shake the souls of the Asura gods, had not completely disappeared in this world. What did that prove? It proved that the Beast Emperor 666 was not dead. Even Asashar and the others could clearly feel the Beast Emperor 666's wild aura. Naturally, Noah, with his superb sensing ability, could feel it. At that moment, Noah frowned tightly, closed his eyes, and fully unfolded his sensing ability to cover the surrounding area. Like a radar, he carried out a carpet search. The surrounding atmosphere was constantly pervaded by a deathly silence, bringing an indescribable sense of heaviness to the air. The Asuras, gods, and Buddhas from the various mythological forces subconsciously suppressed their breathing, not daring to even breathe loudly. It was not until a certain moment that Noah suddenly opened his eyes, turned his head, and looked in a direction. Crack, almost at the same time, the space where Noah's gaze was fixed on suddenly cracked, and a crack appeared. Piak, piak, piak. As if it had caused a chain reaction, the space kept cracking and even distorting. It broke like glass, and a void of darkness was imprinted in Noah's eyes. Then, Noah saw it. In the space crack that looked like broken glass, a human figure emitting a dazzling brilliance floated out. Ah! A hair-raising roar suddenly sounded from the mouth of the human figure emitting brilliance. The voice was filled with madness, violence, and ferocity, causing everyone to show a frightened expression. What? What is that? Everyone couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. Noah's brows furrowed again. He felt the Beast Emperor 666's wild aura from the other party, as well as the terrifying energy fluctuation that was almost identical to the Beast Emperor 666's. He asked Drake. Drake, is that 666? This aura, this power, if you say it's not 666, even I won't believe it. Drake said in a deep voice. Looks like the Beast Emperor spat out its core before it was destroyed by Li Yan's flames and magic power, and managed to escape. Core. Noah's gaze turned directly to the human figure emitting brilliance. That's 666's core. It even spat out its core and abandoned its original body. It seems that the Beast Emperor has been forced into a dead end by you. Drake said. Next is 666's desperate counterattack. You have to be careful. The moment Drake finished speaking, several pairs of wings suddenly spread out from the back of the Beast Emperor 666's core. Those wings were the wings of birds, dragons, and even bats. There were almost all kinds of wings, fully demonstrating 666's deformity. Afterwards, the core suddenly flapped the wings on its back and charged towards Noah in a frenzied manner with a ruthless aura. Seeing this, Noah narrowed his eyes. The red aura around him and the resplendent starlight also swelled. The magic power in his body circulated and turned into divine power that flowed rapidly. In the next moment, thick chains of light suddenly condensed in the space around Noah without any warning. They shot out from the ripples of space and quickly wound around him. The Beast Emperor's core had just arrived in front of Noah, but before it could attack, the chains of light swept over and wound around its body, binding its limbs and body. It hung in front of Noah. Ah! The Beast Emperor 666's core suddenly struggled madly and roared at Noah. Its violent, ferocious, and crazy appearance did not look like a creature at all. Looking at the 666 core, Noah was silent for a moment. Then, he spoke calmly. Perhaps you shouldn't even exist in this world. After saying that, Noah extended a finger and pointed at the 666 core's chest. Activate Virtual Star Tice Way. Let the universe revolve. Simulating another cosmology. A burst of bright starlight suddenly bloomed from 666's core and covered its entire body. Ah! The core of the Beast Emperor 666 seemed to have sensed something, and it let out a crazy roar like a dying beast. Under such circumstances, the resplendent starlight completely engulfed 666's core. With a twist, it turned into a ball of dazzling light and fell into Noah's hand. This scene was not unfamiliar to the Asuras and Buddhas of the various mythological forces. It was exactly the same as when Hades, the god of the underworld, was sealed in Greek mythology. Looking at Noah, who was hovering above the surface of the sea, holding a ball of dazzling light in his hand, the Asuras exchanged glances with each other, their faces flushed red. Oh, 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 oh. Not long after, a burst of loud cheers resounded, and it didn't subside for a long time. Chapter 1968. The war was over. After Lesavim was killed, Euclid was captured, the evil dragons were annihilated, and the Holy Grail was retrieved. Now, the Disaster Squad had suffered a great loss. They no longer had the strength to resist the various mythical forces. In other words, the Disaster Group was already dead in name only. However, the main gods of the mythical forces did not want to let the Disaster Group go so easily. A starving camel was still bigger than a horse. As a group that gathered the terrorists of every mythical force, if they continued to allow this group of terrorists to exist, even if there would not be a large-scale war, it would definitely cause all kinds of trouble. Therefore, in order to get things done once and for all, the main gods of the mythical forces expressed that they must take advantage of this opportunity to uproot the Disaster Group. Fortunately, as the only trusted aide of Lesavim, Euclid had been arrested. In the case of Lesavim's death, Euclid no longer had any hope for the Disaster Group. Coupled with the fact that even the 666 beast on the same level as the Red Dragon Emperor and the Infinite Dragon God was sealed by Noah alone, Euclid had completely given up on continuing to resist all the mythical forces. And so, with Euclid's help, the group successfully found the alternate dimension of the Disaster's base camp, which was constantly changing its coordinates. In one fell swoop, they broke into the alternate dimension and wiped out the rest of the Disaster's members. At this point, the Disaster Group was completely disbanded, and all the terrorists were brought to justice. Without the threat of terrorists, and with the major mythical forces now reaching a peace agreement, the world had truly ushered in peace. Therefore, on this day, Asashel was undoubtedly the happiest. After that, the main gods of the various mythological forces gathered again and held a short meeting. An important issue in the meeting was the seal of the 666 Beast Emperor. Unlike Hades, who was sealed forever in the underworld by Noah, the 666 Beast Emperor was sealed in the fictional world by Noah using the illusory star Tisway, waiting to be dealt with. The effect of this simulated star atlas, another cosmology, was that it could ignore the difference in strength, and seal natural gods and elves of stars in the fictional world, and could only exert the effect of having the spiritual capacity of other objects. In the world of Demon High School, there was no such thing as soul points, so the effect of having soul points was completely useless. Beast Emperor 666 was not a natural-born deity, nor was he a star spirit. Naturally, he could not ignore the difference in strength and seal him away. Logically speaking, the simulated star map, another cosmology, named illusory star Tisway, should not be useful to 666. However, don't forget that this another cosmology can be used to create fictional worlds as cages. Back in the box, when faced with the million gods who came to seize the sovereignty of the sun, Noah first sealed up the most powerful gods, then personally threw the Asuras, gods, and Buddhas, whose spiritual attributes had been reduced by half, into that imaginary world. Even the strongest species could not break through the fictional world created by the simulated star atlas, another cosmology, let alone those Asura gods and Buddhas. Therefore, even if the illusory star Tisway could not have any effect on 666, Noah could still use it to create a fictional world as a cage to imprison the Beast Emperor. With the cage created by the another cosmology, there were only two ways for the Beast Emperor 666 to get out of it. One was to rely on his own brute force to break free. However, the so-called another cosmology was above the 3-digit power of the box, and was equivalent to a 2-digit power. If the Beast Emperor wanted to rely on brute force to break free, it would only be possible if the power far exceeded the gift itself, which was more than a 2-digit power, and reached the 1-digit power level. However, the Beast Emperor 666 only had its core left. Even if it still retained a 3-digit power level, it was impossible to reach the 1-digit power equivalent to a part of the law. Therefore, this method was equivalent to not having any. The second was to rely on others to open the fictional world. If one wanted to open the fictional world, there were also two ways. The first was as mentioned above, and a person with a single-digit power level could forcefully pry it open. The second was to use an equivalent but mutually restraining, another cosmology, such as Avesta, which could offset the power of another cosmology, to release the Beast Emperor 666 from it. In this world where even the Crimson Dragon Emperor, the Infinite Dragon God, and the Silent Revelation Beast Emperor only had 3-digit power, it was impossible for a single-digit power to appear. On the same level as another cosmology, it was also impossible for a method above the 3-digit power level to exist. Therefore, these two methods were almost impossible to achieve in this world. In this way, unless the person who held the illusory star Tice Way opened the fictional world himself, the Beast Emperor 666 would never be able to come out. In this way, there was no need to worry about the Beast Emperor 666 escaping at all. Noah could completely throw it into the sea and continue to sleep for the rest of its life. However, the main gods of the mythical organizations were not at ease. Even Athaziel, Sazax, and Michael were not at ease, so they held a meeting on how to deal with the Beast Emperor 666. In the end, after some discussion, all the main gods decided to hand the Beast Emperor 666 over to Michael and seal it in the heavens. After all, the only one who had ever confirmed the existence of 666 was the God of the Bible. Sealing 666 in the heavens could be considered as ending the wish of the God of the Bible, who had died on the battlefield because of the seal. After the meeting, Noah also did 3 things. First, he borrowed the Holy Grail and used the power of the Holy Grail to restore the broken arm of Clon Kuvok. Second, he brought the Holy Grail to Gasper and let Gasper fuse the Holy Grail back into Valerie's body, awakening this mixed-blood vampire who had been innocent from the beginning to the end. Third, he accepted Shiva's challenge and had a duel with the god of destruction in the alternate space. No one followed him to that duel. Only Orpheus, Lilith, Aster, and Athena witnessed the entire duel. When Noah and Shiva came out of the alternate space, Shiva made a public announcement. "I'm no match for the God Slayer. He has the qualifications to replace me and become the second in the top 10 in the world." This result was not out of anyone's expectations. Because, as long as he had the power of another cosmology, Noah would definitely not lose to existences other than humans. As for humans, how many could win against Noah, who used Tyrannosaurus, who was between 3 and 4 digits, and who was on the same level as Orpheus and Lilith? No one. Under such circumstances, Noah was truly invincible. In addition, Orpheus and Lilith had both become Noah's contracted servants. In the end, Noah replaced Orpheus' position and became the first in the rankings. As for Orpheus and Lilith, they were both ranked second. The storm gradually subsided, and the world ushered in peace. After that, Noah lived a peaceful school life for a period of time. While living with Orpheus, Lilith, Austin, and Athena, he continued to train the Jumanli's family. That was because Leah's was finally ready to make her debut and began to stand out in the ranking game. And Leah's first opponent was actually Saratog, who had met Noah once and even fought once. Soon, the day of the competition arrived. On this day, in the training space of the Jumanli family, Noah looked at the group of students in front of him and faintly smiled. "Looks like you are very nervous." Everyone, including Leah's, had a trace of nervousness on their faces. The timid Gasper was even about to cry. "All right, since there is still some time, you should quickly adjust. We will be leaving for the underworld soon." Noah looked around at everyone. "Let me see. Thank you for your growth during this time." "Yes, teacher." Everyone agreed in a loud and clear voice. Chapter 1969. The ranking game between Jumanli's kin and Baal's kin was something worth paying attention to in the underworld. It wasn't because they were the next leaders of the famous Jumanli and Baal families, but because the Jumanli and Baal families were very active in the war against the Disaster Syndicate. In the final battle against the Disaster Syndicate, Jiminori's kin was selected as one of the few elites to enter the alternate dimension to deal with the legendary level evil dragon. They even personally killed a Dragon King level evil dragon. This news had already spread throughout the underworld. Baal's kin had also performed outstandingly against the evil dragon army. Saroj's fists had crushed countless mass-produced evil dragons. Therefore, although both of them were new generation demons, they were much stronger than many demons who had participated in the ranking game for a long time in terms of strength alone. The leaders of the demon realm all agreed that both Leith and Sarayog would rise to the top of the rankings in a short time once they debuted. Because of this, the ranking game between the Jemengli family and the Bal family was quite interesting. Under such circumstances, both sides chose a very special place for their ranking games. An island floating in the air. It was a floating city located in the territory of Grand Duke Agars. There was only one island in the entire underworld. It was said that it was a city that had existed since the era of the old Demon King. Even in the underworld, it was a famous tourist attraction that was rarely seen. It even monopolized the economic circulation of the surrounding area and was often chosen as the venue for ranked games. One of the reasons why this city was chosen as the ranking game venue for the Jemengli and Bal families was because it was very famous. As for the second reason, it was because the Grand Duke's family was a neutral faction. As mentioned before, the current Demon King wasn't one of the 4 legendary Demon Kings, nor was it a hereditary Demon King family. Instead, it was a powerful and capable Demon King chosen from among the demons to assume the role. To the ancient demons who valued bloodlines, the Bal royal family's political authority was even higher than that of the Demon King. Because of this, the upper echelons of the demon world were basically divided into the Demon King faction that valued reform and the King faction that valued tradition. The two sides had always had various conflicts in various political decisions. As a result, the Demon King faction and the Great King faction had been arguing over the location of the ranking game. The demons of the Demon King faction hoped that this ranking game could be held in the Gimli domain. After all, Demon King Lucifer was a member of the Gimli family. The competition for the next Gimli family head would naturally be held in the Gimli domain. However, the demons of the King faction also strongly requested that this ranking game be held in Bale Hill. Isn't that also the debut competition for the next head of the Bar family? In the end, the two sides continued to argue and were unable to decide on the venue for the competition. In the end, Duke Agars, who had remained neutral all this while and was in charge of mediating between the Demon King and the King, stood out and set the venue of the match at the floating city of the neutral Agars domain. Only then did the dispute come to an end. There were 3 ways to enter the city. The first method was to use a teleportation array to teleport. However, because this city was both an important place and a world heritage, it was naturally impossible to enter and leave so casually. Usually, there was a barrier to intercept and transfer means, and it was only provided to VIPs during important festivals. The second method was to take an aerial vehicle such as an airship. Under normal circumstances, this was the proper way to enter the city. Most demons used this method to enter the city. The third method was to use the cable car extended from the city and take the cable car to enter the city. This was provided for the residents near the territory to use. Noah and the Gimli family used the first method. As VIPs and contestants, they used a special teleportation array to directly jump into the city and enter the competition venue. In front of a corridor inside the competition venue, Noah and the Gimli family stopped in their tracks. Noah turned his head and looked at the Jemenglis family. Next, you will go directly to the special passage for the contestants, and I will go directly to the VIP room to watch the whole process of the competition. A VIP room? Lasvia said thoughtfully. That seems to be a special VIP seat that only the Demon King, Grand Duke, and the VIPs of various mythical organizations can go to, right? Yes. Noah nodded. This time, apart from the demons, the angels, fallen angels, and the main gods of various mythical organizations will all come to watch the competition. This has never happened before. In other words, our competition will not only be watched by the people of the demon realm, but also by all the mythical organizations in the world. Irina's pretty face tensed up. I feel like I'm getting more and more nervous. Yes. Genova's expression was no different from before, but one could faintly see that her gaze was a bit erratic. Even the angels are coming to watch the competition. If we embarrass ourselves, We will definitely be laughed at by our former colleagues, right? I'm starting to get nervous too, Isha said nervously. I hope I won't drag everyone down. Don't worry, Senior Isha, Kitten comforted her. Senior Isha is already very outstanding. She won't drag everyone down. You don't have to worry about dragging everyone down, but our opponent is Lord Saratog of the Ball Royal family. He's the #1 demon of the new generation. Laybell sighed. I feel like it'll be a tough battle. It'll definitely be tough, but we've already defeated an evil dragon of the Dragon King level. It won't be a problem. Yuta tried to cheer everyone up. Everyone, don't give up so easily. Yuta's right. Liaz nodded heavily. No matter what kind of opponent we face, we can't give up so easily. This is our debut competition, so we must fight beautifully. Yes, Zhu Nai said with a smile, cupping one side of his face. We can't embarrass the president. I'll do my best too. Gasper raised his hand weakly, but his eyes were resolute. I've already promised Valerie that I'll win, so I definitely can't lose. After hearing those words, the Jumanli subordinates all revealed unswerving determination, and their eyes began to burn with fighting spirit. Very good, Noah said with satisfaction. Then let me look forward to seeing your performance. With that, Noah's expression softened. He stepped forward, patted Isha and Kitten's heads, and spoke softly. I hope I can see your victory before I leave. Hearing this, the eyes of the Zemeng family members trembled slightly. Then, their gazes became even more resolute. After parting with the Jimins, Noah went straight to the VIP room. Under the respectful attitude of the 2 demon guards at the door, he walked into the extremely luxurious room. Oh. Azazel, who was chatting with Sazax, was the first to notice Noah, and revealed a typical smirk. He's here, he's here. Hearing Azazel's words, everyone's eyes turned to Noah, and they all stood up subconsciously to greet Noah. Obviously, although Noah was alone, none of the famous Azuras here dared to look down on him. After all, although the person in front of them was just a human, he was recognized as the world's #1 and was absolutely invincible. Now, the group of Azuras, who had already understood how terrifying Noah was, naturally did not dare to slight him, and all of them were polite to him. Noah also did not embarrass these Azuras, and responded to them one by one. Then, he came to Azazel and Sazax and sat down. In front of everyone, a projection screen was unfolding. On it, a Roman Colosseum was projected. Around the arena, the ring-shaped auditorium was almost full of people, and it was even more lively than the great demonic battle exhibition that Noah had participated in. In the arena, the Jimins and Baal's families had already arrived, and everyone cheered. Liaz led her family, and there was no longer any nervousness on her face. Instead, there was the same elegance and confidence as before. Sariog also led his family, and looked at the Jimins with a relaxed smile on his face, exuding a domineering aura. Under such circumstances, the competition began. You're tuning in to the A Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.